across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
.602, happy Saturday one and all. I'm Mark Dolan and this is Talk Breakfast. Breaking this morning, positive news for the King as he scales back his cancer treatment. Could this spell a bold and productive new chapter in the reign of Charles III? Supermarkets and shops should do more to tackle the scourge of shoplifters, says a police chief. Pressure grows to allow illegal immigrants to be allowed to work in this country, and they've done it. Reform UK are now the biggest political party in the country. But my question to you is a simple one. Are Reform the answer? My priority for the next 4 hours is to get your opinions on the national radio and television airwaves. My phone number is 0344 499 1000. Tommy is taking your calls, so dial that number 0344 499 1000. Say, good morning, Tommy, here's what I think. And the question is a simple one. Are Reform the answer? Got a dream team today. Nahar is directing our television output, so if you want to watch the show, just head to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. Engineer Dave is pressing the buttons and doing much more than that. This guy could have redesigned the Large Hadron Collider. That's how much of a wizard he is. He could do that in his lunch break, to be honest. And our executive producer is Dean Spencer, and we've got a very big show for you. Listen, there's been a lot of focus on Nigel Farage's remarks as a 15-year-old schoolboy in the playground. Who cares about that? It's a non-story. It's a nothing burger. The key question is, are they ready for power? What's their plan for the economy? How are they going to stop those boats? What is the real world implication of getting rid of net zero? How's it all going to happen? Are Reform the answer? And wonderful news about the King. Does this mean that he can start a brand new chapter in his reign, move on from his woes of the past, and perhaps deal with that errant side of his, Prince Harry? We can but dream. You can text the word TALK and your message to 87222. You can leave us a voice note as well. As the saying goes, let's talk. I do not care if Nigel Farage was a toe rag at school. My question is a simple one. Are Reform the answer? 0344 499 1000. Let's go. And we'll kick off at 6:05 on a Saturday morning with today's front pages. Daily Express, good news by sticking to doctor's orders. The King has announced a welcome milestone in his cancer recovery, which he credits to following doctor's orders. Charles shared his good news for Christmas, revealing his treatment can be reduced in the new year. In an emotional video message, he urged people to keep up to date with screenings because early detection is the key to successful treatment. Actually, Dean Spencer, executive producer of the show, maybe gather a clip if you can of the King. Let's hear a little bit of that speech that he made in support of Stand Up to Cancer. Daily Mail, Christmas cheer for Charles in his cancer fight. The Times, King shares good news on cancer treatment. Video message tells of personal blessing and urges Brits to go for life-saving screening. Daily Mirror, King's cancer message, my good news. Charles says treatment can be reduced as he offers hope to others. Daily Telegraph, good news about my cancer. Also, stores need to do more to tackle scourge of shoplifters, says police chief, is another story that we'll be discussing shortly. iWeekend, urgent NHS drive to give children the flu vaccine before Christmas. An astonishing stat, by the way, which is that 50% of NHS staff have not taken the flu vaccine. Interesting. Daily Star, champ Luke swerves Ali Pali Wasp after his win. Littler buzzing for glory. Essentially, Luke Littler, who's a wonderful darts champion, was being interviewed on Sky Sports and there was a wasp there. Slow news day at the Star. The Guardian, by the way, a bit late for wasps, isn't it? December? My goodness gracious, that's like an old age pensioner wasp, isn't it? That's a centenary. That wasp is going to get a letter from the king. Congratulations on your amazing longevity as a wasp. It really stings to hear how old you are. OK, The Guardian. Doctors strike during flu crisis beyond belief, says the Prime Minister. Well, you better believe it, big guy, because you are the PM. You're the inhabitant of number 10. The Sun newspaper, Britain's best-selling newspaper, no less. There it is. Look at that. What a weighty tome it is. And I'm going to tell you the headline, and it's really good news. King's cancer fight boost. Strong to reign over us. King Charles has revealed the good news that doctors are reducing his cancer treatment next month, almost 2 years since his diagnosis. In a personal video shown on Channel 4 last night, he called his recovery a blessing and said he hoped it would encourage other patients. He told viewers early diagnosis quite simply saves lives. Buckingham Palace said the King had responded exceptionally well to his treatment. And Taylor Swift, my tears and torment over child victims of Southport. Those are your front pages reacting to the big stories of the day. I'm delighted to welcome the presentation coach himself, broadcaster, political advisor and Svengalian guru, Graham Davis. Hello, Graham.
Good morning, Mark.
It's lovely to see you, and we can both smile because for once on this rather cold December day, we've got good news, and the King is faring very well in his cancer battle.
Absolutely. And he has managed to make it the most positive thing for the rest of us, because there are many situations in life where going, la, 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 can't hear, can't hear, can't hear,
I know.
is possibly the best ploy. But cancer screening is not one of them.
Correct. You must absolutely always get checked. Go and consult your doctor if you've got any symptoms that are unusual. And then, of course, you've got things like prostate cancer, which don't even have symptoms in many cases, Graham. But what happens is a gentleman gets to a certain age, like you and my good self, where maybe we need to pop to the doc and you know, get a little probing.
Well, I have to say, I started getting prostate checks done about 15 years ago. Perhaps I'm older than I look. And really, there's no aggravation involved. There's very little discomfort.
It's quite, with a doctor though, it's quite intimate, isn't it? I mean, does he pour you a glass of wine before it starts or what?
There's very little foreplay. And it just has to be done.
Does he stick the old Barry White on?
Well, in
the
fact,
walrus of love.
I'm told even 10 years ago that actually it's the chemical test is much more, how shall I put it, accurate in terms of rather than the finger.
Yeah.
But nevertheless,
well, I
both together.
I had it, and I said to the doctor, that hasn't happened since my wedding night, so fair play. I said to him, you're not even my type. But the truth is, it doesn't involve that now, right? Does it? The prostate test? What do they do?
Indeed so.
What's the pity, by the way? I'd say bring it back.
Well,
bring back the rubber gloves.
All I know is that I get a piece of paper with a number on it. The number is good for me.
Do you know what? Talk is cheap. Show me. maybe during the ad break. But I mean, whilst we laugh about it, it is important. And by the way, I do want to ask you, you're not a doctor, but what the heck, let's go for it. With the prostate test, is there not a concern that the test often shows a positive result, but you don't have cancer?
Yes, and I started having my prostate test long before that concern became something that was reported in the media.
Yeah.
And indeed, one of the things I will praise the medical establishment for is, of course, now I have an NHS app on my phone. I can look at the results of tests over the last few years as well. And so all I know is that if you really wanted to, I could actually show you what my prostate number is, my PSA number is now, and I know that it's right in the middle of the range.
Because what happens, the doctors are not always keen to test just for the sake of it, are they, with regard to prostate cancer? And I think there are some medics who actually say, no, if you don't have symptoms, don't.
Well,
is there a little bit of a division on it?
There does seem to be a division, and there does seem to be a possibility of what I believe are known as false positives, which can, of course, cause a lot of angst in the patient. And the positive doesn't necessarily mean that treatment or further exploration is needed. That is the core concern.
Indeed. Well, the bottom line is, if you don't feel right, if anything changes, you go to your doctor. And I suppose the other thing is, for a gentleman of a certain age, go and get it checked out because of your age.
Without question.
Would that be the advice?
Absolutely. Certainly that's been the case for me. I've never regretted any check I've ever had.
I'm in no position to advise anyone medically. I'm not a doctor, although I think I've got doctor-like qualities.
Well, you've got really rotten handwriting, Mark. Yes,
that's
absolutely.
the first one. I'm wearing spectacles, which means I'm dead clever. So, you know, I'll do my best.
And you certainly have a doctor's taste in neckties.
Yes, well, if you're listening on the radio, perhaps you want to watch our television output. If so, head to YouTube and search Talking Up with Pop. And I'm wearing a charity shop tie. The one great thing about charity shops is ties. And I've noticed there are more ties available these days, and I think it's the pandemic, because what happened is everyone stayed home, people have got meetings on Zoom, people that work in offices now, it's much more casual.
It is. I mean, I'm absolutely the peak of formality having a jacket on.
Yeah.
Even lawyers don't wear ties these days, except perhaps in court. Well, that's how bad we've got.
So what's happened now is all the ties have turned up in charity shops. You're literally a generation of ties. And therefore, if I'm with Mrs. Dolan and she's looking at a variety of items that she frankly doesn't need, the wardrobe is heaving as we speak, then there needs to be, what's in it for me? So I'll go to the tie rack and see what vintage classics I can pick
Absolutely.
up. And this is one of them.
I knew that tie when it was a deck chair. Excellent.
Harsh but fair. So it's great news about the King. Could this spell a new chapter in his reign?
Well, he does seem to have managed to surf the wave of positivity he's got in terms of response from the public.
Yes.
To get slightly closer to the public than one might have imagined of Prince Charles. And so, actually, it's turned out to be quite a positive thing for him.
That's really interesting. Let's take a listen to the King addressing the nation via Channel 4's campaign to stand up to cancer.
Today I am able to share with you the good news that thanks to early diagnosis, effective intervention and adherence to doctors' orders, my own schedule of cancer treatment can be reduced in the new year. This milestone is both a personal blessing and a testimony to the remarkable advances that have been made in cancer care in recent years. Testimony that I hope may give encouragement to the 50% of us who will be diagnosed with the illness at some point in our lives.
Well, my first observation is how well he spoke, Graham, and how tremendously good he looks. He looks in rude health. He looks well.
He looks well, and there's a certain level of his voice occasionally, both in public speaking and in broadcast speaking from a table straight to camera, did have a certain amount of aloofness when he was Prince Charles.
Yes.
But that had a certain level of warmth, as though he was bringing the viewer towards him. I wonder whether this experience has softened him just slightly.
Well, you're an expert in political presentation. What did you make of the delivery generally? Was it coherent? Would you have given him any tips, any pointers to improve how and what he said?
It was calm, collected, measured, short sentences, nothing complex, no complicated concepts, but merely relief, warmth, and a certain amount of controlled emotion. It was a model for a modulated TV broadcast.
And he was likely reading from a prompter, but you didn't feel like there was a script.
But crucially, I suspect he practiced with the prompter enough so that it didn't look rehearsed.
Oh, of course, that's the real skill, isn't it? He does have an opportunity now, as we embark on a new year, to move the project forward. That, you know, he wants headlines not about his health or the family's health, because, of course, Catherine has recently overcome cancer herself, and it's wonderful news. She's in remission. You've also got his runaway son in Hollywood, California, and he wants the headlines not to be about those issues, but about his positive contribution as king. You know, he needs to make history, doesn't he?
He does. And the way that the cancer has developed for him, I've never felt that there was a hint of self-indulgence in the way that he's talked about it.
Yeah.
He's talked about it in a way that has clarified things for the country and indeed focused on what other people could do to help themselves. And I think this is an excellent foundation for what other projects that he might want to focus on from now on.
What's extraordinary is that he has been battling cancer, which is an incredibly serious illness, and he's been receiving treatment on a weekly basis. Now, any kind of treatment for cancer is exhausting. It has an impact on the body. In some ways, you know, the cure is nearly as bad as the disease when it comes to cancer, right? We're very lucky that these treatments exist, but they take a lot out of you. And yet, he's been very, very busy as king. He's been very visible. He's been travelling the world, addressing the nation, opening hospital wings. This guy hasn't stopped.
And because there is quite a lot of genuine general knowledge about cancer treatments now, I think the population know how debilitating cancer treatments can be.
Especially on a weekly basis.
Indeed so. And so the genuine warmth he's getting from the public as he's going out and about is tinted with a certain amount of admiration that he grits his teeth and just jolly well gets on with it, and that's something the royal family have always been good at doing.
There's a slight element of Trump about this man, in that you've got a public figure who's in his 70s who in many ways belies his years. I mean, the energy and work ethic of Charles is legendary, and it hasn't diminished with age or indeed whilst carrying a serious illness.
Well, undoubtedly, that video you showed out there, that clip, as you say, almost aggressively rude health, which is something that Donald Trump has specialised in as well.
Oh, Donald Trump is a walking miracle. Okay, you can love or hate his politics. The guy is pushing 80 and he's unstoppable. It is genuinely true that the people around him cannot keep up.
Indeed so. I don't think he's ever darkened the doors of a gymnasium. He eats steak and chips vigorously every day, washed down by regular Coca-Cola. He defies all medical advice and still keeps going.
Well, I'm so happy for the king. We needed this good news, and the country needs it. We've got a lot of political division at the moment. You know, the economy's going backwards. You've got lots and lots of debates going on, tribal politics. We need someone to unite us, and King Charles could be that man. He will be mindful of his legacy, won't he? He's in his 70s, he's not going to be around forever, and he wants to make his mark. He hasn't been able to do that so far.
Well, I think over the last... Let me think about this now. Yes, certainly for the last century, every monarch and every senior member of the royal family has always taken very seriously their constitutional role, the apolitical head of state, that should be a rock of solidity, irrespective as to how much the current Prime Minister is struggling. And the current Prime Minister is struggling a great deal with just about everything that he's that he touches turning into manure. Even more so, there has to be a constitutional monarch who is the epitome of rock solidness.
Fascinating. We're going to come back to the Charles conversation. I also want your professional verdict on Keir Starmer, because I think he's like a rabbit in the headlights. I actually think he knows it's over. I think he knows that his position is unsalvageable, but I'll get your professional verdict on that very shortly. By the way, the junior doctors, the resident doctors, still planning to strike in the run-up to Christmas, notwithstanding the super flu spread. Do these people have any conscience at all? But next up, Reform UK are now officially Britain's largest political party. But are they the answer? This is Talk Breakfast.
the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. Watching and listening to Talk just got easier. There's now only one place for the home of common sense. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is 6:23. You're listening to Talk Breakfast. Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. Reform UK have become Britain's largest political party. But are they the answer? Pete the Mole, take it away in a voice note.
Yes, reform has to be the answer, because simply none of the others are. Labour, no. Tories, no. Liberal Democrats and Greens, certainly not. There is only one party that people can vote for now, and that's reform, because nobody else is offering this country and its people any hope.
Thank you so much for that. The very first voice note of the day from Pete, and reform are the answer. What do you think about this? First of all, what is the significance of reform becoming statistically Britain's biggest party and, of course, ahead in the polls?
It is a staggering achievement to get to that level of membership. That level of membership guarantees a certain amount of drip, drip, drip income all the time. That's remarkable. But it doesn't necessarily translate into a massive number of qualified candidates, either in a general election in 2, 3 or 3.5 years' time, or in the local elections in 6 months' time. The two things don't necessarily go together, and that will be a big challenge for them. I think that reform have been very effective in asking some brutally tough questions. They haven't necessarily been so effective in coming up with all the answers. They've shown that they're a really effective attack dog Rottweiler protecting the house, but not necessarily the cuddly Labrador that can look after the family afterwards.
Yes, I mean, I've had lots of listeners and viewers to this show saying that actually, yeah, Nigel may not be the finished article, that it'll be a work in progress because this party barely existed a few years ago. And Nigel only became leader just a few months before the last election. But even if they are 10% better than what we've got, I'll take that. That's what a lot of people have said. I think that actually expectations are not sky high from Reform UK supporters. They just want things to get better, and now they don't believe the Uniparty will achieve that.
Nigel Farage currently, the current Nigel Farage 1.0, is indeed a marvellous showman, an attack dog, somebody who is an advocate. But whether he can be the CEO, the managing director in 3 years, I'm not so sure. And indeed, he's not so sure as to who will actually be around him on the board of UK PLC. They, of course, say that we don't want to be a retread Conservative Party, but I suspect he will be keen on those, 17 or 18 former Tory MPs getting seats, so that he's at least got a few MPs with some experience. He can't appoint his entire cabinet from captains of industry or from the city, because there needs to be at least some political experience. Although, of course, I suppose the country are thinking, we'd be delighted if it was complete political virgins there with no experience, because be better than the experience we've seen recently.
Well, do you think that Reform UK and Nigel Farage will be mindful of the two Trump terms? Because I suspect that what they'll be aiming for is Trump 2.0 in his second term, not the first Trump, because when he won previously in 2016, He was thwarted by the bureaucracy, by the American blob, and even by some of the hacks around him from the Republican Party who thwarted his vision. Second time round, Trump came out the traps, signing executive orders, scrapping net zero, exiting the Paris climate deal, tackling, woke political correctness in America's public institutions, closing the southern border, the tariffs war. What we've had from Trump in the second term is a lot of dynamism and a man that is absolutely doing what he said he would do. And that's what reform need. They need Trump 2.0, not the first incarnation, don't they?
You defined the effectiveness of Trump 2.0 compared to 1.0 with one half sentence there. He started his second term signing executive orders. In his first term, rather than doing that, he tried to fight the establishment, to wreck the establishment, to push the establishment aside. It's very difficult to do that in any Western country. Now, reform, when it's actually been elected into local government, thought it could smash the establishment. But look at what's happening in Kent. Now, we've basically got a reform faction that is riven with internal divisions. They thought they could slash spending, but in fact they've had to increase council tax, and they would have liked to increase it more if they'd been allowed to under statutory limits. So reform can't smash the establishment. It needs to play with the establishment system effectively, and I'm not sure it's quite got the savvy, or showed that it's got the savvy, to do that effectively in central government.
Nick says, good morning, Mark. I'm a reform supporter, but we should remember that Corbyn led Labour to becoming the biggest party at the time with 500,000 members, and yet he went on to lose 2 elections. Maggie says, good morning, Mark. No surprise here about reform now being the biggest party overtaking Labour. Maybe Starmer should have listened more, stood up for us more. He definitely wasn't reading the room. Tony says, hi, Mark. 100,000 members have abandoned the Labour Party under two-tier Keir. This is a crisis for the Uniparty, isn't it, for both Labour and the Conservatives?
Oh, it is, because it's not just on the right that there is some splintering. Now it's become clear to me that the Green Party is now the repository for the far left. And so the Uniparty on the left-hand side, Labour, is being challenged from one side. The Conservative Party, massively challenged by reform. This is going to be an exciting chapter to read in a history book in 30 years' time.
It most definitely is. What do you make of Kemi Badenoch's recent performances? She seems to have upped her game.
She did what she had to do at conference. She lit the blue touch paper and the rocket lifted off. But of course now, a few weeks later, all we can remember from her speech was the abolition of stamp duty. She did the Rottweiler routine very effectively in response to Rachel Reeves' budget speech. But again, I have to say, 2 speeches do not make a summer. She still hasn't managed to plaster over the gaps in her own policy making. She's great at attacking, but not so much at creating. And perhaps the best time to see the verdict on her leadership will be after the May elections.
What are the Conservatives for in 2025?
I've always believed that the Conservative Party, rather than being more right-wing, more centrist or more left-wing, has to prove itself to be more conservative. Now, defining what more conservative means is very difficult, but essentially the economy will always be Reform's and Labour's Achilles elbow. The Conservative Party has to be the one that projects economic and financial policies whereby this country lives within its means. We don't spend more than we bring in, and that has to be the core Conservative policy from now on.
It's the economy stupid.
It's very much so. It's the economy clever.
If the Conservatives recover ground, which I suspect they may, and it's definitely quite clear that Kemi Badenoch is more comfortable in her own skin now and more sure-footed at Prime Minister's questions, wittier, more ruthless with the Prime Minister, is it a headache for anybody on the right that wants change at the next election if the Tories come good again?
Well, William Hague between 1997 and 2001 was a brilliant opposition leader. He tore Tony Blair to shreds in 9 PMQs out of 10. And it made not one jot of difference to the Tory standing, and indeed, really, the election result in 2001. Even if Kemi Badenoch is brilliant at scything Starmer to shreds every Wednesday lunchtime, that won't make a difference to the local election results in May. And I think that there needs to be somebody who is perceived to have a genuine, specific vision for conservatism to take the Conservative Party to a credible result in the next general election.
Is the ultimate truth that the Tories need to get rid of Kemi at some point and have a generic type figure in there who rolls the pitch for some kind of long-term partnership with reform?
My sources tell me that there is a general acceptance that Kemi cannot be the general election leader, that she is a stopgap currently, and indeed she is settling into that stopgap role with decent performances at PMQs, but she does not have the vision, she does not have the gravitas to take
Has she
the
got the
Conservative
work
Party
ethic? Because
forward.
I've heard she's lazy.
She is unlikely to be troubling the office doors before 11 o'clock in any given morning, and unlikely to be around after 4 p.m.
Wow, what a story. Next up, should illegal immigrants be allowed to work in this country? 6:33, Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
6:35, just discussing with Graham Davies his political expertise and prowess in advising politicians. And it's interesting you mentioned about the Tories reconnecting with conservatism, and that was very much the flavour of Kemi Badenoch's pitch at the hustings in the leadership election of the Tories, that she sold herself as very much somebody rooted in conservative values. What is the difference between conservative values and being right-wing?
A 3-second gap. That is the unusual sound of Graham thinking. Now, I
can hear the cogs whirring.
Yes, indeed. Right-wing never sounds to me to be an attractive thing. Left-wing doesn't sound to be attractive.
No.
Wings are never attractive in terms of political philosophy. Socialism has its own advocates, of course, and enough so for people left of centre for it to sound like a positive thing.
Yeah.
Conservatism, I think, stands for tradition, stands for strong defence, stands for strong law and order. And for me, crucially in this climate, conservatism means living within our means, something which arguably no Conservative government has done since 2010, and no Labour government has done since 2024.
So therefore you could argue maybe Liz Truss's mini budget was not an example of conservatism.
It was extreme libertarianism, not conservatism.
Wow. Sean in Gloucester, the question this morning, are Reform the answer, as it's revealed they're the biggest party in the country now? For many years we've been marched to the left, started with Blair and is now a gallop under Keith Starlin. We have been silent for too long, but the majority have now found their voice, and that will be the end of the uniparty nonsense. I don't think Nigel and Reform will achieve everything they want to, but even if they get 10% done, we will definitely be better off, and that's what I'm hearing so much, that 10% figure. I don't think expectation is high. People just want things to get a bit better and go in the right direction. Natasha says, good morning, Mark. Commentators are keen to point out that Reform will have many parliamentary members with no experience. Look at the total disaster of the Labour front bench with all their so-called experience and all those new MPs with no experience. Utterly useless. Give me Reform who actually care about us and who will at least try to work for us. Sharon says, good morning, Mark. Labour is totally finished now. They may as well go now and save the embarrassment. That's Sharon in Staffordshire. Good morning, Sharon. How about this from Steve? Is Graham serious? Live within its means under the Tories. Debt, tax, all-time high under the Tories. Unvetted men crossing the border at will. Ridiculous. Sean says, how can you carry out identity and background checks on an illegal immigrant who can say and make up anything they like? Well, that's going to be our next story, which is about whether illegal immigrants should be allowed to work. We'll get to that in just a moment. Before we do, can I ask you why the Conservative Party shifted so leftwards in the last decade?
Well, I actually agree with that commenter that you read out just 30 seconds ago. And certainly from 2019 to 2024, the last Conservative government certainly did not live within its means. But a future government and a future campaign for a future Conservative government has to extol the virtues and actually bring into practice living within its means.
Well, that's right. So we've got a very massive, enormous state. The growth of the cult of welfarism, the open borders, the net zero socialist experiment, all of this under the Tories. Why did they become so left-wing?
Well, Boris Johnson took his eye off the ball as soon as he became Prime Minister, in my opinion. There was a strange interaction between him and Sajid Javid, which ended up in Sajid Javid essentially being sacked from Chancellor. He brought Rishi in. Rishi's first budget, even before the pandemic, was a remarkable frenzy of spending. In fact, many friends of mine on the left of centre said, my word, it was a Blairite budget. And he already started the momentum towards big spending before big spending became absolutely necessary during the pandemic and then in the response to the Putin invasion. So there were two big factors, COVID and the Russian invasion of Ukraine, that certainly influenced the sort of almost socialist direction. But really, essentially, the way I look at it is because Boris Johnson took his eye off the ball.
Interesting. And also, I would say he's not a true Conservative, personally.
Well, he was always, essentially, at university, a Liberal Democrat.
Yeah.
But then, of course, he realised in student union society elections that being a Liberal Democrat was possibly the best way to go. But really, in his bones, in his long-term attitude, he was a Conservative, and it was as a Conservative that he was most likely to become Prime Minister.
There you go, and of course he's a big pragmatist. Zach Polanski is the leader of the Greens, Graham, and he says that we should allow small boat migrants in. You actually let them into the country, right? They're not breaking the law anymore, and let them work. What say you?
Well, essentially, that is the same as saying we should have wide open borders. There should be no immigration controls whatsoever. And the interesting thing about Polanski is that when you see him interviewed on television, for the first 3 or 4 minutes, he sounds remarkably plausible, remarkably fluent, remarkably credible. But then in the last 30 seconds, he slips something in that's absolutely barking. And unfortunately, it's time to end the interview. All I can say, Mark, if I could be so
euphemism.
bold as to give you a bit of coaching here, if you ever get the chance to interview Zach Polanski, ask him the difficult stuff straight away, so that you can keep him barking and howling for the next 5 or 6 minutes, because that is the way to expose his lunacy.
I love the sentence, "It's time to end the interview," and I'm sure that his handlers have thought that on more than one occasion, including on Question Time, when he said it was the job of migrants to wipe our bum in care homes. I don't want to wipe someone's bum, a migrant should do it. Welcome to the sneering middle-class attitude towards immigrants. They're the true racists, in my opinion. What about this idea that they should work? A big reaction on the message board. Let's have a look at this. So we have got Sharon says, "No, I do not think that illegal immigrants should be employed. I sure as hell would not employ them. We don't even know who they are now. We're going to do a check on them, but we don't know who they are, and it makes no sense," says Sharon. Pauline, "Illegal immigrants should not be allowed to work. They shouldn't be here in the first place. They need to be processed quickly and sent back to wherever they came from. British people have to have checks prior to being employed, so why would illegal immigrants be an exception?" And Steve, Mark, good morning. "On working illegals, no way should they be allowed to work. Why reward bad behaviour? We've been doing that for at least the last 10 years. In my opinion, they should be locked up, but that's another story." Steve, I think they should be locked up. I think that illegal immigrants should be locked up. I think that what happens is you enter the country illegally, you're incarcerated and then removed. I don't think that's controversial. Is that controversial? 03444991000. This is Barry in Norwich. Good morning, Barry. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Good morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well. A very special moment. The first call of the show, and you're in Norwich, which is a nice part of the country. What do you think about this? Illegal immigrants allowed to work. Would you be happy with an illegal immigrant stuffing your bags in Sainsbury's?
Look, the word illegal gives you the clue. They've broken the law getting into the country because they've come here illegally. They've committed a crime, right? Now, if I go commit a crime, I get detained and locked up. You know, I don't get put in a 4-star hotel with meals and phones and computers and everything else that they get, right?
Yeah.
The British people, whether you're left, right, whatever, they have had enough. These people, we are allowing unvetted young men to come into this country. We don't know who they are. They are raping children. They are raping women. They are committing crime.
They are.
And there is thousands and thousands and thousands of them coming in. And it's a political choice. Now, I think Nigel Farage, the more people, like, what was it they tried to get him on the other week where he called someone a name in a playground or something? Yeah. You know, I think the more they get onto Nigel Farage, and the more he's going to get into power. The Conservatives and Labour Party, they are finished. They have had Conservatives had 14 years to sort out, and the Labour Party are just making a dog's dinner out of everything. And you know, I think this country needs change, wants change, and I think Nigel Farage is the one to bring that change, because it's about time politicians started putting the British people first. The main job of any government is to have secure borders, a strong military, and make sure its own people are safe. They are not safe. The Labour Party go on about protecting women and girls. They're not protecting women and girls, because these people are coming over here and raping women and girls. So every day you see it on the news now. A 14-year-old girl raped 2 14-year-old girls, raped by illegal migrants. Yeah, and it's just getting to the stage now where, you know, something's going to happen. Something's going to crack. The pressure is just going to go. Now, you know, I'm not saying violence or anything like that, but you can't have all this going on and nothing happening, because it's a political choice. All Starmer has to do is call a national emergency and put the Navy in the channel.
Yes.
Yeah, that's all he has to do. Yeah.
And I don't care, I don't know about you, Barry, I don't care how many international laws we break, and I don't care about being a global pariah.
No, I don't care about it either. Do you know what I mean? This is our country. Like I said before, I said to someone before, he was moaning about it. I said, listen, if 6 young men knocked on your front door and said to you, oh, can we come and live in your house? what would you say? Yes. You say no.
And also, there's a big difference because they don't knock on the door and they don't ask, do they? They come through the back window. Barry, stay with me. Graham Davis, your reaction to that?
Could I say that Barry defined early on in his words there exactly the issue? There aren't two types of immigration, legal and illegal. There are two types of immigration, legal and criminal. We should start calling it criminal immigration in every reference point, because they have broken the law in the way that they come into the country. And so therefore, in my opinion, they should not be eligible for anything when they arrive. That initial criminal entry into the country should actually debar them from any participation in this country and its facilities.
The border is a central tenet of the nation state, is it not? It's not controversial. It goes back to Roman times and beyond. We have countries, and those countries are defined by political borders, and they're there for a reason.
And in a political sense, it is interesting how this issue does have a certain amount of sotto voce cross-party agreement. There are vast numbers of Labour voters who have the same view as Conservative voters and Reform voters, that essentially the borders have to be tightened dramatically.
Sotto voce, I thought that was a pizza topping. Now, Barry, we obviously need change in this country, right? In my opinion, I think you'll agree we need a political, economic and cultural revolution. Here's the question for you, though, Barry. Are reform the answer?
Well, the other two parties ain't the answer. They haven't been the answer, right? And I think, Nigel Farage has the ear of the British people, unlike Starmer and whatever her name, I can't remember her name. Kemi, yeah. They don't have the ear. So Farage has the ear of...
Barry, is he saying the right thing? Bearing in mind that I believe you're right, he does have the ear of the people. Is he taking advantage of that opportunity well enough? Is he saying the right things in their ear in terms of positive solutions?
Yeah, I think he is. I mean, he said the first thing he's going to do is call the first Sea Lord and put the Navy out in the Channel. Yeah? Other countries in Europe can get rid of their illegal immigrants. They're all in the ECHR. They don't care about the ECHR. And I'll just let you know one thing. A few years ago, because this country says they have to do what the ECHR tells them to do. A few years ago, the ECHR said to this country that you have to give prisoners the vote. The government at the time went against the ECHR and said, no, we're not giving prisoners the vote. What happened? Nothing. Yeah. So, they can go against the ECHR. It's a political choice to allow these people into the country. The area I live in has changed just dramatically. It's just, and it's just, people have had enough, Mark.
Great. Barry, before I let you go, how has the area in which you live changed?
Well, I've lived in my area all my life. Went to school I'm quite lucky. I live in the same area I was born and I went to school, and it's changed. I mean, how can I say this? You're lucky to hear an English accent on the main street. It's full of kebab shops, charity shops, bookies. All the shops are shut. There's no kids playing in the parks no more. Do you know what I mean? There's gangs of young lads hanging about. There's two big hotels where I live, full of immigrants. They all hang about in gangs. They all wait for the school kids to finish school, and they're all... Do you know what I mean? Looking at these schools. Do you know what I mean? It's just, it's just changed beyond recognition.
You've described it very well, Barry, and it's devastating, and it's symptomatic of countless towns and cities across the country, and it's so wrong. Barry, call me again soon. Really enjoyed our conversation this morning. You have a good Saturday, and Barry there speaks from the heart, speaks very eloquently as well. Well, listen, I've got there's a lot of things that I get a very clear message on from you watching and listening. Many of you say, look, even if reform are 10% better, I'll take that. So expectations are not sky high about a future Farage-led government. The other thing you all say to me is that if you could afford it, you would leave this country, right? That's what so many of my viewers and listeners say, is if I could, I'd be out. Well, bad news, because productive Polish plumbers are fleeing Britain because of high taxes and crime. Who could blame them? That's next.
The Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. Watching and listening to Talk just got easier. There's now only one place for the home of common sense. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And in those circumstances, you either become incredibly...
Well, listen, can I tell you some of the best conversations happened during the ad break? So we've just blended the two. Graham Davis is with me in the studio. And Graham, it's lovely to have you here in the studio. The Great Polish Exodus. The arrival of hundreds of thousands of Poles changed the face of Britain, right? Going back to the Blair era, when Tony Blair opened the border to the east. However, many of these highly productive Polish plumbers, electricians, entrepreneurs, educators, they're leaving and they're going home because of sky-high taxes and crime. Who could blame them?
I'm gutted. Every builder I've ever used, every plumber I've ever used has been Polish. Done a great job. They work very hard. They turn up on time and they're a delight to be around. But as you say, who could blame them? The Polish economy has skyrocketed from the time when, I suppose, when Lech Walesa took over and they got rid of the, well, essentially Russian control.
Yeah.
That when luxury was a cup of coffee or possibly half a banana. But now it's a glorious place to be. And why not go home and surf the wave of your own home country's economic success? Good luck to them, but sad for us.
They don't accept any illegal immigration. It is a coherent, relatively homogenous a country. It's a happy and coherent society.
Yes, indeed. And also, they have no illusions as to how difficult things might be politically and militarily over the next few years.
What does it say about Britain that in the 90s, Poland was a poor country and you came to Britain for a better life and to make some money, and now the opposite is happening? That Poland is the rich country and we're the paupers.
Well, and we are in a situation where we've got a new type of armoured fighting vehicle that seems to do more harm to our own soldiers than to the enemy.
Yeah.
Where a senior admiral has said that our nuclear submarine fleet just doesn't work, let alone be at all fit for purpose. But by way of contrast, the vigorous Polish economy has increased its defence spending and has a very viable army, navy and air force because it knows the Russian threat is very real indeed.
It seems, doesn't it, that we've been very unfortunate in our history in this country that following the pandemic and the Russian invasion of Ukraine, that we've elected a left-wing government that's perpetuating the cult of welfarism, that's taxing everyone to oblivion, that's seeing a brain drain of not just talented Poles but Brits as well. We really are unfortunate that at this moment in time we've got a Labour government.
We are, and you mentioned welfarism as a cult, and that's a very interesting concept because, of course, the budget was created on the premise that we had a current account overdraft of £20 billion. Turns out their account was in the black, according to the Office of Budget Irresponsibility, of £4 billion. But they made the choice to get as much money as possible to increase welfare spending as much as possible. It is an active choice. Welfarism hasn't just become a policy, it's become an obsession.
And Mrs. Thatcher had to tackle it in 1979 because in the run-up to that election, we didn't just have the legacy of and the aftermath, the hangover of the winter of discontent. It was also a time when the welfare state had got out of control and people that were working, holding down a couple of jobs, were still bringing in less money than their neighbours next door. The welfare state was very generous in the 1970s and it was completely exploited. So here we go again. And that's going to be a conversation for the next administration, is a big change in the relationship between citizen and state.
Looking back on the welfare payments in the 1970s, they look gloriously sensible and penny pinching compared to what seems.
It's a good point
now.
It's a good point.
Welfare spending is the key issue under the overall heading of the economy as to what people's attitude to that is. And interestingly, within welfare spending, the two-child cap. Now, the two-child cap, obviously, the Labour benches roared with approval when that was abolished. But in fact, there is an awful lot of support right across the country amongst people of all political persuasions for the two-child cap.
That's interesting, exactly, and people believe in fairness when it comes to welfare, not welfare being a lifestyle choice. My thanks to the brilliant Graham Davis, the presentation coach, who returns to the airways very soon. Loved your company. Keep it going. Should illegals be allowed to work? This is Talk Breakfast.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Oh, it is a nippy out. Definitely jumper weather. Good morning, 3 minutes past 7. Happy Saturday, one and all. I'm Mark Dolan. This is Talk Breakfast. Your weekend starts here, and breaking news this morning. Some very, very positive news for the King as he scales back his cancer treatment. Could this spell a bold and productive new chapter in the reign of Charles III? Supermarkets and shops should do more to tackle the scourge of shoplifters, says a police chief. And pressure grows to allow illegal immigrants to be allowed to work. Should they, if you've entered the country illegally, if you are a criminal immigrant, as my last guest Graham Davis put it, should you be allowed to work? Do you want an illegal stuffing your bags at Sainsbury's or Tesco or Asda? Other supermarkets are available. Let me know your thoughts. And they've done it. Reform UK are now the biggest political party in the country by way of membership. They're ahead in the polls. So my question to you at 4 minutes past 7 on a Saturday morning is a simple one. Are Reform the answer? Are they the answer, folks? Is that the only option now? My phone number is 03444991000. Tommy is taking your calls, so pick up the phone, dial that number, say, good morning, Tommy, here is what I've got to say. You can text the word talk and your message to 87222, or you can send us a voice note. We love a voice note. My job for the next 3 hours is to get your opinions on the national radio and television airwaves. You can hear us on DAB+, and of course you can watch us. And Nahar is directing our television output this morning, doing a brilliant job. She's got my best side. All you got to do is head to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. Are Reform the answer, and should illegal immigrants be allowed to work? 0344 499 1000. Are Reform the answer is the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch at 8 a.m. in just an hour's time. You won't want to miss it. The content of it may surprise you. So let's now get reaction to the big stories of the day from a good friend of mine, retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector Mike Neville. Good morning, Michael.
Yes, good morning, Mike. Mark, I'm back from Spain, so it is quite cold, isn't it?
It is. It's definitely jumper weather. You definitely need your long johns. You took a bit of winter sun, did you?
Yeah, I took a bit of winter sun. Went to sunny Benidorm, which has always got good music, I find.
Is it quiet at that time of year in December?
Yeah, it's quieter, yeah.
But do you still?
I sort my tie out here. Not doing very good job, am I?
You look terrific. Let me tell you, you look like an oil painting. You're perfect.
Yeah.
No, look, I'm glad that you've had a bit of winter sun. You come back now to the cold chill of the United Kingdom. Can we start with some very positive news, Michael? That the King has been able to scale back his cancer treatment. That's a huge vote of confidence in his health, and he can look forward to the new year now with vigour.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anybody who's, my wife suffered from a cancer treatment and all these things. It's just such a relief, isn't it, for family? Forget being the king. He's a dad and a granddad, isn't he? And to have that Christmas time of
Yes.
Not worrying about that you're feeling a bit better, better about yourself. And some of the treatment, of course, is highly unpleasant and really makes people ill as well. So not to have that, to know that it's in your diary that on this date you're going to get this terrible treatment. So just as a human being, doesn't matter if you're a king or a pauper, not to have that in the back of your mind. It must be a lovely thing. And so happy Christmas to him and the rest of his family.
Well, that's right. And he can get to work in 2026. He won't need those weekly sessions for treatments, which is great news. This guy has got a challenge. He wants to have a legacy from his reign, does he not?
I think so. I don't agree with much. Some of the things he does. He seems more of a woke king than his mother was a sort of sensible queen. And I think a lot of people I know of my sort of centre-right ilk won't agree with much that he's done. But I just think as a human being, you know, really good luck to him. And I'm sure he does want to leave a legacy. He's waited a long time for the job, hasn't he? He's waited for longer for a job than me or you has ever done. So, yeah, just good luck to him.
Well, I agree with you there. And certainly the environmental fanaticism is a concern, and his interference in architecture is, I would argue, unwelcome. He's entitled to his view, but the problem is, being king or previously Prince of Wales, he had a privileged position and therefore I think should have been more politically neutral. I don't disagree. However, it's good news for the country, isn't it? For the head of state, for the monarch, to have a good health prognosis, because we've got divided politics. So we need someone in Buckingham Palace that can bring us together.
Yeah, and that's what the royal family do. And I think that the best advice I could give to the king, if he needs any, is be like your mother, because she didn't interfere in these things and she acted like a non-political person.
Yeah.
Too often, I think the king's political views have come forward, and that just causes, as you say, further division. The country is really polarising, isn't it? It's you've got, when you look at add up the polls, you've got half the people who are voting sort of centre-right parties, Reform, and Conservative, and then you have a lot of people who are voting for Greens, SNP, Plaid Cymru, the Your Party, whatever that is, and that's a lot of people with really, in my view, extreme views. And just like you saw in America, where the Republicans and Democrats were sort of like the soft and hard Tories, how that has polarised into two very different camps. And I think this is happening in the UK as well.
Most definitely. And just a final thought on the king. What it does mean is that he'll be able to be very active and very busy next year. He's a workaholic at the best of times. But it does mean, fingers crossed, Mike, and with God's will, that he'll be around for longer than previously thought. And that's good news for William, not just because, of course, you know, he treasures his father, but it's also good news for William because it's too soon for him to become king.
Yeah, I think that everybody's been thinking of that, haven't they? That to suddenly be thrust into that limelight, and we've seen it before in history, haven't we? How Edward the Seventh, for example, had to wait a long time for Queen Victoria to die, and then he became the king, and then he was only on the throne for some 9 years or something. And once you get a lady on the throne, of course, they don't move off it, do they? They're on it for 50 and 60 years, even 70 years if you get a lady on the throne. The king seemed to be much more quickly go. But of course, if William took over in just 10 years' time, he'd probably be the king for some 50, 60 years, wouldn't he, given his age?
Well, that's exactly right. And I just think it would be so unfortunate now because he's got a young family. He's got a wife that has also just overcome cancer herself. And I think he wants a few years to get ready for the job. I'll tell you who also needs a bit of time before getting the top job is Nigel Farage, because they now, Reform UK, Mike, are the biggest political party by membership. And of course, they're ahead in the polls. But the leader of Reform UK needs to focus now on getting ready for power. And if there's an election in 3 years' time, that's probably a blessing because he needs that time to tool up.
Yeah, I don't think there's all this talk of these early elections. And personally, I think the Labour Party, why would they have one? You know, they could cling on to power for a long time till the last moment. They know that they're done, really. You look at both the political parties that most people have voted for the best part of a century, with Labour and the Tories, are finished, really. They both probably know that. So why not cling on? But I do agree that there needs to be some more experience. I don't think it's really vital. I think it would be good to have people who haven't got too much political experience. Importing sort of half-dead Tories is possibly not the way. There's enough advisors who can be there. But I just think that the trouble that Reform will have is the civil service will be utterly against them. I've seen this in the police with an IT department, how people can block and obstruct, do everything in their power. And so he needs to get ready with people who are going to give, sound policies and the like. But I don't think it'd be a bad thing to get a lot of new people in and shake the place up. We've had enough of this sort of uni-party where it's been, 3 lots of Tory government. Then everybody has to suffer Labour for a term because people forget what they're like. And that goes round and round in cycles for, like I say, over 100 years. So we need something new. But I don't know. It's a strange thing. You know me, I've offered myself to reform and said, look, I've got all this experience of policing, criminal justice, and I hear nothing. So I don't know. And I know other people are in that situation, but it would be a good thing to reshape the Commons. There's too many people in there who are these professional politicians who've got a PPE degree from Oxbridge, shipped into some sort of bad seat to fight. And then if they're Labour or Tory, then they're given a safe seat. They've been an advisor to the government, and they've never had a real job. Where reform could make a difference is to have people in there who are possibly a bit older, have been business people, in the police, maybe doctors, army officers, but people with real experience rather than the rabble that we have at the moment.
The leader of the Green Party, Zach Polanski, has said that illegal immigrants should be welcomed into this country and they should be allowed to work. Jane says, Mark, I do not think illegals should be allowed to work. They should have zero rights. If you've broken into our once beautiful country, then you don't get to work. And there are not enough jobs as it is. Robert says, make the illegal immigrants work. Make them pay for their own food, their own rent, and save enough money to pay for their own flight home. How about this? A few more ones. We've got Amanda. Illegal immigrants should most certainly be locked up. I think everyone who's been assaulted by one of them would wholeheartedly agree. What do you think about this? Brian in Daventry as well, by the way. Illegal immigrants working would have a 100% pass by the ECHR due to having a life established already in the UK. Not a good idea. Should illegals be allowed to work, Mike?
Not at all. I mean, but Polanski's a very strange man anyway, isn't he? He's the one who thought that you could enhance women's breasts by being hypnotised. So he's a very strange...
Can I just say he had a Zoom session with Mrs. Dolan. It didn't work.
But the thing is with him, he's a very strange man. The worrying thing is, with all these weird and wacky ideas, and I fully agree with your callers and listeners that he doesn't, they shouldn't be working. But the trouble is, this man appeals to the young and naive who think there's money from everybody else, and we'll all have a fair share, And when you get a bit older, of course, and you start paying a mortgage and you work, and you realise that the idle don't deserve a fair share. All the criminal illegal immigrants don't have one anyway because they put nothing in. But the danger with the Greens is that they appeal to sort of the young and naive, and the sort of it's been described to me, the Green Party, as the Communist Party for middle-aged women, and it's a really dangerous thing in my view.
I think it is a real worry, and they are chomping at the ankles of Labour. And as you say, becoming a repository for the hard left, which is a deep concern. And it's why we've got to talk about them and why we've got to take them seriously. It's an interesting response that we've had to our discussion about our reform, the answer, Mike. Simon in Durham has said, good morning, Mark. The truth is, come 2029, reform won't be able to form a government alone and will jump into bed with the Tories. Although that would arguably be better than another 5 years of Labour, it's not going to be as good as I'd like it. I think the country is finished. Where do you think, Mike, the Tories fit into the Reform UK equation?
Well, I suppose the power that Reform have now, they've changed it round. So when the Tories talk to this wasted vote, Reform can very much turn that on its head now and say the Tory party is a wasted vote. I think what Reform could do is have a look at the actual candidates that are being put up by the Tories in certain areas and say, OK, we'll give you a free pass here, but we will make the decision if we do that. Because there will be some Conservatives, who you can see on the screen, Kemi Badenoch, who might well fit. Suella Braverman fits into Reform. And they could make those hard choices and say, right, we'll have that person and not that. The trouble is, I don't know where the likes of Nadine Dorries fit into all this. I mean, she brought on that online safety bill, which is a bit of a mess. And they're very much in danger. Some of the callers' comments are just like my friends who are saying, we don't need the Tory party version 2 being shipped onto us. We want new. The country's crying out for a new thing, and as I say, people with real experience who love their nation to run this country. Because I think at the moment we've got inexperienced people who hate this nation trying to run it, and that's a really bad thing.
I'm going to take your calls next on this. Should illegal immigrants be allowed to work? This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Should illegal immigrants be allowed to work in this country? Derek is in Manchester. Good morning, Derek.
Good morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well. What's happening in the northwest this morning? Is it nippy outside?
It's cool. It's cool.
It's fresh.
For once, we can see the sky. But,
glad to hear that. Well, listen. What about this story now? Illegals working. What say you?
Well, I would say absolutely not. I mean, put it this way, if a burglar broke into my house, the last thing I'd do is come downstairs and say, excuse me, can you just do the dishes? Or will you take the kids to school while I watch telly? You know, it's absolutely crazy, isn't it? So they're illegal. They're illegal immigrants. They broke the law. They should be in a prison camp or at least a migrant camp until they can be sent right back to where they've come from. And be that France, then send them right back to France, because they left France's shores. France has got no excuse to say we're not having them back. They left their shores. With modern day technology, you can track them every inch of the way. You can see which beach they walked off. You should be able to put them right back on that beach. Simple as that. They didn't have a passport. How did they get in the country? They weren't allowed here. You know, how plain do you need to make this? You know, it's absolutely ridiculous, these idiots coming up with suggestions like that in the first place. But, you know, like the gentleman said before, people will vote for that idiot. You know, and that's what absolutely annoys me about this country. We've got so many fools that can't see the daylight in front of them. You know, it's absolutely crazy. Your last caller, by the way, he was absolutely spot on with what he said about the fact that we need a complete rehash in Parliament. Seriously, if this had been 100 years ago, I'm pretty sure by now this lot would have been dragged out and strung up at lampposts, because they're absolutely treacherous to this country. And seriously, we really do need a revolution, but not reform. Unfortunately, they are going to be like the Tory Party Mark II. You know, Nigel Farage, his only ambition for getting into politics originally was to destroy the BNP, as he said at the time. He actually admitted to that. That's why he got into politics. That's why UKIP was founded. He said he set out on a mission to destroy the BNP. Well, you know, say what you like about the BNP, they did have a big following, and the top and bottom of it was they were saying everything that is being said now, sort of 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
So are you worried? Are you worried that Farage is going to let people down, Derek?
I am actually, yeah, I really am, because as I say, I think Farage is actually a state-sponsored safety valve for the public. You know, because they know these people at the top, they really do know the feeling in the country. They're not stupid. You know, I'll give them that. They're certainly not stupid. We might look at them and say, oh, well, that's a stupid thing to do. But they're not stupid. They're making big money out of what's happening to this country, I'm afraid. It's like the people that sold our industry off 20, 30 years ago.
Yes.
You're not telling me that they didn't get backhanders from somewhere for getting cheap labour into this country. You know, you're not telling me that big business didn't get all these, you know, you're lobbying.
And Derek, big business love the open borders as well.
Of course they do. That's exactly what I said. I mean, if you go back to 1979, I think it was, and the National Front, the National Front started off as the London Dockers, who were objecting to mass immigration. And Margaret, they were getting to somewhere where they were going to get an MP elected in 1979. And Margaret Thatcher came out and made a speech, and she said, oh, we're rather being swamped by alien cultures. And the next day, Rupert Murdoch, her mate, and I know he's your boss, but he came out with a big front page story saying Margaret Thatcher's a racist. And lo and behold, she was voted in on a massive majority, because the nation
the people
at that time wanted that racist that the Sun was saying Margaret Thatcher was. And of course, the first thing she did, Michael Howard, who was a future Prime Minister, but at the time was her Home Secretary, gave an amnesty to 15,000 illegal immigrants. You know, because when you think about it logically, an employer of masses of people, like the Sun was at the time, an employer of masses of people, if you were to say to them, well, listen, if we let all these people in, it's going to drive down wages and we won't have to pay £1 an hour, we can get away with 50p an hour. You know, it's obvious what they're going to choose, isn't it?
Derek, you've spoken with such conviction and very, very powerful comments you've made. Hard to disagree with what you said. Stay with us, Derek. Can I ask for your reaction, Mike Neville, retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector? Derek not happy about the direction of travel and, interestingly, against the idea of illegals working. You cannot reward people that have broken the law, can you?
Of course not, because then more will come, and because they'll offer this as a solution. It's a bit like the NHS. They keep saying, oh, we need more immigrants because the NHS needs more people. So they bring in more immigrants to do the NHS and then say, oh, we need even more immigrants. So there are people in this country who are utterly obsessed to the point of cult-like behaviour with this idea of multiculturalism. And the more it doesn't work, the more they try to enforce it on people. But the impression I get with people like Derek, who's probably just an average bloke from the Northwest, like myself, is that all over the country, though, there are people like him who would have just, 20 years ago would have just fitted in and got on with it. But so many ordinary people now are really angry. And I think what's happened is that previously these the problems with mass immigration, uncontrolled immigration, and bringing in different cultures that don't fit in with us, it was really an inner city problem. And people could ignore it, and the only people they saw any different colour were on EastEnders or Coronation Street, and they're invariably the goodies. But now everybody's having a share. So it's now in Bournemouth, in Epping, in Stoke, wherever else. It's in all these places and Crowborough. So it's not just like working class and council house people are suffering it. It's middle class people who probably thought it was a great idea while they've been shipped to a council estate in Stoke. Now it's coming to Crowborough, they're thinking this is really not a good idea. And I think the country is a very, very angry place.
Mike, briefly, if you can, do you agree with a point just made there by our caller that Nigel Farage is likely to disappoint people if and when he becomes Prime Minister, that he'll let the country down?
I hope not, but this is the real fear that people have, that he will suddenly just become, that same political force. The way he dealt with Rupert Lowe, I think, disappointed a lot of people, because some of the things that Rupert Lowe says in Parliament are very, very good.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they're changing their policies and matching what Rupert Lowe is said. It's like getting rid of Ben Habib, another man who talks a lot of sense. And I think that's where people are disappointed. Can Nigel Farage bring in people who possibly slightly disagree with him, who may challenge him for the leadership in future? That's the issue, I think.
Listen, Mike, lovely to have you with us on the show, and we'll catch up very soon. Mike Neville is a retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector. Should illegal immigrants be allowed to work? We're going to get the legal answer from a top solicitor next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
7:32, you are listening to Talk Breakfast. Lovely to have your company. Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. Dolan's Dispatch coming at exactly 8 o'clock, and it's about reform. Are they the answer? Listen, one of the big discussions this morning, one of the big talking points is the remarks of the Green Party leader, Zach Polansky, who says that we should welcome illegal immigrants and that they should be allowed to work. Let's get the legal point of view on this. Live in the studio is Marcus Johnston, who is the MD of PCD Solicitors. Good morning, Marcus.
Morning, Mark.
Lovely to have you in the studio. You come down from the Northwest to be with us today.
Yes.
What do you make of this debate? I mean, legally, where do you stand on this?
Well, it's interesting what Derek was saying a few moments ago with the illegal immigrants and whether they should be allowed to work. I think, I guess you had on earlier, was talking about illegality is criminality. Do you allow people who are criminals in the country to then work? I think it's a difficult one to reconcile. I suppose the short answer would be no. The reason for that is, what do they contribute to the economy? So if you've got people who are working illegally, generally it would be argued they're not paying the tax. And we've all seen the problem with the cash economy at the moment. You go down the high street, certainly near where I live, most of the nail bars, the salons, the barber shops, it's all cash. A lot of restaurants are cash. And the question is, why is it cash? They're probably not paying into the economy, they're not paying the tax. So if you've got people who are taking those jobs at much reduced pay, employers who want to employ illegal people will pay less money, then it's creating less work for those people who do want to work. So it is creating a massive problem for the economy. So that's the first thing. I think Derek also touched on Farage. Can he do it? I mean, that's the million-dollar question. We've gone through politics in the past, and it seems that the argument is that none of the mainstream political parties have made things work. It seems to have got worse. So would Farage do it? Well, Farage maybe has a different approach in that he's largely business-oriented. So a lot of the people he has and what he does want to do is bring in more of the major businesses and business leaders to add to the debate.
Which Trump has done very successfully in the United States. You've got a real estate mogul that brokered peace in the Middle East.
It is, and sometimes you just have to step outside, think outside the box and look at some different approach, because politics is politics. You don't tend to have that many politicians who have had a big career in business. And I think if you have a business or a successful business person that knows how to run a business, can look at the figures, then can that transcend into the political area? If you run a large company, can you run a country? I don't know, but that's the question. But if
Trump's
you've got
done it, and Berlusconi did it.
That's right.
I mean, these people are used to presiding over a large, complex organisation.
And it's not going to be without its teething problems.
Of course.
You know, Trump had teething problems first time round. I suppose a lot of it depends on the advisors that you have and people who are behind you. But I think what Farage does want to do is bring in those business people to provide the advice to him. And I think it may work. It may work. Can it be any worse than what's happening at the moment? I doubt it.
You're a very successful solicitor, and you run PCD Solicitors. You represent the perpetrators and victims of sexual crimes, and including you specialise in people wrongly accused of these crimes. How much of an issue is illegal immigration in relation to sexual crimes in this country, would you say? Is it overstated?
It's not overstated. If anything, it's understated, unfortunately. I think the figures are much, much worse than what people realise. The figures that are out recently with the Police Council reporting on the number of offences committed by illegal immigrants and British people against children illustrates the massive increase that we've got in crimes against children and young people. And there is, and I can see it from a daily basis, an ever-increasing crime problem with illegal immigrants and immigrants, even lawful immigrants, committing crimes. The difficulty we have is when we talk about it, there's the fear of being cast as racist by discussing it, and that's been the problem for many, many years. We've seen it, Mark, with the grooming gangs. And
you've been very, very involved in that because you've been, you've had court cases and you've represented people, either victims or perpetrators, so you know the grooming gang story inside out.
We do, and I've dealt with them and been involved with them for probably 20 years. And it's only the last 12 months or so where the mainstream media have started to pick up on this. It's only in the last 12 months where even the police have started to acknowledge that there may be a problem. We've seen recently in London where the Met has now said, well, actually, we're now going to investigate 9,000 cases which were put by the wayside over the years. This is a problem not just in London, but throughout the country. And I think if it's investigated properly, then it will be a major problem for various institutions, not just the police, but social services, probation, the governments. There's lots of people that have been involved in this, where you might argue that there's been some kind of cover-up over the years.
Yes, and you've got the very strange spectacle of Sadiq Khan denying the existence of grooming gangs when questioned about that by Susan Hall, who is a Conservative councillor within the London Assembly. So, you know, in the end, this goes to a political level too, doesn't it?
It does. It goes all the way up to the top, and it's difficult to understand. I mean, Keir Starmer, who was head of the CPS, you know, I've dealt with Keir Starmer when he was in the CPS. He must know, as anybody in a senior position must know, the problems that the police have had with the grooming gangs. I've spoken to senior CPS lawyers, I've spoken to senior police officers, probation officers, social service workers, child support workers over the years. They will all tell me off the record they know the problem that there has been with the grooming gangs, with the abuse, systematic abuse of children, particularly from care homes, all over the country. But they are scared to talk about it. They won't speak out for fear of their jobs. They're told they're not allowed to report on it. They're not allowed to talk about it. Police officers are not allowed to investigate it. And this has been a problem that's been ongoing for many years. So if there is a full and fair investigation, then the danger, I think what a lot of people in high up places are concerned about, is what will it show? Will it reflect badly on them? And certainly the senior police officers, if there's been any cover-up, that's going to have a major problem for their careers and their jobs.
So the victims of the grooming gangs may not get justice because of an establishment cover-up, potentially?
They may not get justice. It will be difficult. I mean, with the new inquiry, it depends how it's dealt with. Hopefully they will get justice. Hopefully the truth will prevail, and it will come out as to what's gone on over the years.
But you've got institutions that will be circling the wagons and trying to protect their reputations and careers, whilst at the same time having this inquiry. The two are at odds with each other, aren't they?
They are, and you've always had that. You've had, you know, I'm old enough to remember the race riots and stuff, and all the stop and searches from many years ago, and the Scarborough report. When you've got changes, when you've got the police, for example, being accused of something, there is that clash. They don't want to accept that, and it does take somebody with a strong character to step in and say, we're going to investigate this, there's something wrong, whether it's institutionalised racism, whatever it might be. It takes somebody with a strong character to step up and say, you've done this wrong, and for the police to accept that, or social services or any institution to accept they've done something wrong.
Do you think that, given you've said, as former head of DPP, Starmer will have known the scale of the problem, do you think that he could and should have done more as a lawyer and or as a politician to call this out?
Well, no doubt he's got many things on his plate to deal with, and I think the difficulty with politics is that there are so many issues to deal with when you're running a country, and how do you get to grips with something that's so endemic for so many years? It's been such a problem for so long. But also when you've got the politics, and particularly with Labour, a lot of those voters that have voted Labour in are from the areas where these problems seem to have originated from. If you look at the large ethnic areas, particularly the Pakistani areas, where that seems prevalent with the grooming gangs in particular, then it's something that's been very difficult to talk about.
And Labour voters may not want a national inquiry if they are from those areas and of that ethnic background.
They may not, but then again, there are lots and lots of people who are from that community who would want that investigation because they are law-abiding people, and they don't want people who are grooming kids. They do want the truth to come out.
Now, a great debate that we've been having this week is whether or not the ethnicity of those committing these sorts of egregious sexual crimes is relevant and should be made public. Shabana Mahmood has said that it should. She's the Home Secretary. the authorities have said that 100% knowledge of and transparency about ethnicity may not be possible. Does it matter if you've committed a crime what your skin colour is, what your ethnicity is?
Well, I think it does matter, Mark, and the reason being, I think all data matters. It's strange that it's only the criminal justice system and the police system and the court system that doesn't gather data, and yet data is collected on everybody every day of their lives. Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg probably knows more about you and me than you and me know about you and me. He knows everything. The phone's listening to me. You know, my partner talks about, she says in the kitchen, she shouts out what she wants for Christmas because she knows my phone will listen to it, and then it will keep reminding me and give the gifts so I can buy them on the phone. So data is collected on everybody. It's so strange that we don't collect data, particularly over the years where we know, or it's interesting to try and figure out who's committing crimes against who. So if it's a particular section of the community that are committing certain crimes, then why not gather that data? It's interesting, we might learn from it. And so it's amazing that the recent figures show that only ethnicity is recorded in only 34% of cases. So almost 2/3 of cases, ethnicity is not recorded. Now, that's not a racist issue, it's just a factual issue. Because if we don't know who and what background and which type of person is committing what type of offence, again, against what type of person, the colour of the person, the age of the person, then we're losing out. We're losing that ability to learn from those figures and to try and correct the problem. If we just ignore it, that problem's going to stay there and it's going to get worse.
And I understand something that you've been looking at PCD Solicitors is the link between the ethnicity of offenders in relation to child abuse, which is the most egregious crime one can think of.
Over the years, there's been very few statistics as to who's committing crimes against whom, particularly crimes against children and also women and girls. Now, the governments are putting more effort in now into crimes against women and children, and rightly so. But over the years, there's been very little effort been put in to try and figure out who's committing these crimes against children. I know it's prompted me over the last number of months to start looking at a number of the courts and try to figure out who is committing what type of sex crimes, where are they from, what the background is. It's extremely difficult to get that information, but the figures that we are accumulating are extremely worrying, because it does show a pattern of behaviour that certain sections of society are committing certain crimes, and that's a worry. That's a massive
And when
worry.
you say certain sections, call a spade, certain ethnicities have a proclivity to certain crimes.
It is. I mean, we're noticing across the board there is a huge number of cases now, and some of the major criminal courts in London, for example, 60 up to 70% of cases each day are committed by those with a foreign background. A large number, around 30-40%, can be sex crimes. Now, this is a big problem. It's a massive problem, because without those, I'm not saying for a second anybody from abroad should not be in the UK, but if those people that were not originally from the UK were not here, would have 70% less crimes in that particular court that day. That's just a statistic. Now, if we're not gathering that data, because the courts are not gathering that data, I've made FOI requests, freedom of information requests, to try and gather data, and we're simply told, sorry, it's not available, sorry, you can't have it. There's one excuse after another. We can't get the information. And so that's what's prompted us to try to start to gather this information ourselves. But there is a reluctance to provide information, because I don't think the government, the authorities, want that information to be made known, because the problem is, in my opinion, it's far, far worse than what even the statistics we do have are showing at the moment.
Well, that is a concern, and perhaps the reason they don't want to reveal the data is because it may rather dilute the narrative that diversity is our strength and that open borders are somehow empathetic and are good for the country. A fascinating conversation. I'm delighted to say that Marcus Johnston is with us until 8 a.m. Should illegal immigrants be allowed to work, and does the ethnicity of criminals matter? Do we deserve the truth? 7:46, this is Talk Breakfast.
This journey of me following the migrants went from sort of 10 in the morning, all around the clock, to late at night, to the point where, on buses, on trains, through streets, at every key point, French military police and the French police, they were there. They were on the bus, taking down notes, taking pictures, but not doing anything to deter the migrants or stop them, just being there.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, let's catch up on some of your feedback. Reform UK are now Britain's biggest party with the highest membership. Are they the answer? This is a voice note from Adam.
Hi Mark, this is Adam from Bournemouth. Mark, the way I look at it is, if Reform do 10% of what they said they're going to do, we are going to be in such a better scenario in the United Kingdom. So, do I think they're the answer? Well, I'm going to be voting for them, and I hope the country votes for them to give them a chance, because I believe they are the answer at this moment in time, because we've give Conservatives, we've give Labour a go, and look where we are. Anyway, mate, thanks for a great show. Cheers.
Well, thank you, Adam. Thanks for the kind words. And that's what I'm hearing, the 10% argument that even if things are 10% better, we will take that. And I think personally that, notwithstanding questions about whether the Reform Party is sufficiently democratic, is it a personality cult, do their sums add up? One thing I will say is that you would have better policies than you do now. Should illegals be allowed to work in this country? Perry, voice note, take it away.
Morning, Mark. Like everyone else in this country, a lot of us, when we go for a job, or, we have to have a DBS. And if you've got a bad criminal record, chances are that employer isn't going to give you the job. So how will they check them? Again, another unfair playing field. They could have a terrible past. How are they going to be able to check it? Because, us, if we had one, something come up on our criminal record, chances are we wouldn't be able to get that job or any job.
Thank you for that, Perry. Really, really interesting to hear your thoughts on that. The truth is, Marcus Johnston, solicitor at PCD Solicitors, what Britain does need is it needs an economic, cultural and political revolution, doesn't it? The country needs an overhaul. We need a reset. We need to unplug the country and plug it back in again.
It does. I mean, it does need a big reset, and it needs some confidence being brought back. You'd look at the news these days, and every day it's doom and gloom, and there is criticism of the government, and it's relentless. And you wonder how long can this go on for with the current participants within the government. I think things must change. They will change soon. What the alternative is, you've just heard there from Perry with the 10% argument. Yes, there is that argument, and I think more people are switching around to looking at the alternative, and they are concerned with what Conservatives can do and what Labour can do, what the Greens can do. I think the forerunner now is the Reform Party.
Yes, you're based in the Northwest. What is the mood there politically?
Pretty much the same as everywhere else around the country, I think. It's we've had particular problems in the Northwest. Sometimes you look at the media and it tends to be London-centred, but you've got problems around London in the same way as we have in Manchester or Leeds or at Liverpool, any of the big cities. It's the same throughout the country. The illegal immigration is the big one, and I think that's where Reform is big. That's where they're going to concentrate their efforts, and I think that's what's going to win the voters, because they have had enough of the current establishment with the approach that they've been taking.
Listen, we're going to come back to this. It's a fascinating story this week, a suggestion by the US administration that you're going to have to hand over 5 years of your social media posts in order to get a visa to go into the United States. What is going on? What is the story? Let's speak to Anita Mendriata, who is a tourism and aviation expert. Good morning, Anita.
Very good morning to you. Thank you for having me.
It's great to see you. What's the story here?
It's a suspicion and a policy suggestion that's been put in place for the last few months. But again, it hasn't actually been put into action from the point of view of policy acceptance. It's just really a rumor that's been passing around that there will indeed be requirements around putting forward your social media history, which can actually be found without people needing to actually put it forward. My worry about this is that whether it is fact or fiction, whether it stays a rumor or it becomes a policy, this is incredibly unfortunate as we work towards the 2026 World Cup, because people want to know that they can go to see the beautiful game across Mexico, Canada, and the US next year. One of the most incredible sporting events that there is in the next period of time. They don't want to feel like they're being watched. They don't want to feel like their technology is being watched. So it's really the psychological deterrent, which is discouraging and hopefully is not going to be implemented.
It sounds like a noisy announcement that will never come to pass. It doesn't sound remotely practicable, does it, Anita? The idea that you'd have to send over 5 years worth of tweets or Facebook posts?
Indeed, and I think importantly, everyone would need to do that. So whether you are traveling on business, whether you're traveling as a tourist, exactly as you say, is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? Highly unlikely. It's just unfortunate that this gets put in place as another reason why people are thinking twice about traveling to the US.
Yes, and of course the other issue with getting to the US, it's the cost, isn't it? The FIFA World Cup coming, as you mentioned, and concern about the pricing of tickets as well.
Correct. The pricing of tickets has been a huge issue. We're finding that the pricing levels of the FIFA World Cup for 2026 are 7 times that of Qatar in 2022. Now, importantly as well, the FIFA World Cup in 2026, it's going to be covering 3 countries, which is fantastic because it's great as a trilateral agreement between the nations. But this is about 8,000 kilometers of land that's going to also be covered. And importantly with FIFA World Cups, and I experienced it very much here in Cape Town when I was blessed to be part of the 2010 games, it's not about one city, it's about dispersion around a country, and in this case 3 countries. And there's also time gaps between the matches, so people are enabled and encouraged to go and travel to destination, see the country. That's additional cost for tickets, for travel, for hotels, for flights. So all of this comes together and it can become very, very costly in money and in time. So it's a calculation we need to be very careful of as we move towards the games. But it all starts with the tickets, because that really puts in place the reputation of welcome or simply being unable to afford to even consider watching the games unless it's on television.
Anita, what a delight to have you on the show. Thank you for your valuable time. Anita Mendriata is a tourism and aviation expert. And it raises an interesting point, Marcus Johnston from PCD Solicitors, which is the possible risk of a social media post that could come and bite you on a bum a few years later.
It does, Mark, and just listening to that, it reminds me probably 40-odd years ago when I first travelled to the States. Those days you had to specify whether you were a member of the Communist Party.
Yes.
Nowadays it's a case of specifying whether you're on Facebook or whether you've got a Twitter account and what your posts are. So things have changed, haven't they, over those years. Going back 5 years, it is possible. I think it's easier for Trump because he has a lot of the tech companies in his back pocket. The tech companies will already have those 5 years of posts, so the data is already there. I know from the cases that we deal with, for example, if there is an investigation, the police can go back, they can contact the tech companies, and with certain permissions they can gather the metadata from how many years back they want to go. So the information is there. The other thing that might be worth your listeners and viewers being aware of is that when they sign up to Facebook or the various app companies, you'll sign those terms which nobody ever reads. But within those terms, it generally gives a blanket permission for them to use that data for whatever reasons they want to. In effect, you're signing everything away. And so if they want to use that data against you, they can do, because you've given that permission in the terms, just like most people don't realise that. And so the information is there. Everything that you and I do is being monitored by the tech companies. That information could be passed to any of the authorities if they wanted to. The tech companies don't want to do that because, of course, they're making more money by selling it on the basis that all that data is encrypted, so nobody can get to see it or hear about it. But what they don't tend to tell you is that they do keep that data, and it can be used if the permissions are required by a state authority.
Only got a few seconds left of your valuable time. We must get you back. But what do you think of digital ID for a right to work in this country? A lot of my viewers and listeners are really bothered and really worried about the sort of crossing a line there with regard to digital ID.
Well, I don't think digital ID will work as far as economy or jobs go, because anybody who's here illegally won't have a digital ID anyway. Any employer who wants to employ an illegal person won't be after digital ID. It's all done on the black market. So that won't make any difference. It's a way of monitoring people. I mean, I've just come back from Dubai, and everything you do in Dubai is watched, it's monitored, it's controlled. And yet there's virtually no crime in Dubai. So there is something to be said for having somebody watching what's going on, having control. If you've got cameras on the streets, corners and every street in London, would it reduce the street crime? It may well do, but it does affect people with this thought of having that control over you.
PCD solicitors specialise in those wrongly accused of a sexual crime, but they specialise in a whole range of issues, and their MD is Marcus Johnston. Marcus, what a delight to have you in the studio. Come back and see us soon, and maybe we'll do the odd Zoom from the northwest, so you haven't got that absolutely exhausting drive down to the capital, but great to see you in the studio. Should illegals be allowed to work, and are reform the answer? This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
8:03, you are listening to Talk Breakfast. Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. And breaking this morning, positive news for the King as he scales back his cancer treatment. Could this spell a bold and productive new chapter in the reign of Charles III? Supermarkets and shops should do more to tackle the scourge of shoplifters, says a police chief. Pressure grows to allow illegal immigrants to be allowed to work, and they've done it. Reform UK are now the biggest political party in the country. But my question to you this morning is a simple one. Are Reform the answer? And we really have sparked a debate this morning. I want to talk about Reform. Are they the answer? Is Nigel Farage going to deliver in office if he wins? Will he let people down? And we've got to talk about the illegals, because the leader of the Green Party has said that we should welcome illegal immigrants and allow them to work. But is that rewarding a crime? Let me know your thoughts. My priority for the next 2 hours is to get your opinions on the national radio and television airwaves. My phone number is 0344 499 1000. Tommy's on the phones. Are Reform the answer? Should illegals be allowed to work? Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Send me a voice note. And as the saying goes, let's talk. You can hear us on DAB+. You can also watch the show, because this is now a television as well as radio product. Just head to YouTube and search Talk, and up we pop. But as always at this time in the show, Dolan's Dispatch. They did it. After just a few years in existence, Reform UK are Britain's biggest political party, with a membership of over 250,000 people. Not bad, considering their main rivals, Labour and the Conservatives, have been around for over a century. But this uniparty, comprised of the Tories and Labour, which in the past has delivered for this country with the NHS and comprehensive public services coming from the left, and free markets, enterprise and aspiration coming from the right, well, post-war, the political story of this country has been largely successful and productive until recent years. And now the uniparty has run aground. Ever since the arrival of Tony Blair, I would argue, and successive governments beyond, of both political colours, Britain has slipped into an era of decline, an ever-expanding welfare state, the cult of welfarism itself, where hard workers are punished and the idle rewarded. The ideology of environmentalism and the economic and industrial suicide of net zero. A mass collective bedwetting apology for our history, even though Britain's past is the most glorious of them all. The spread of the woke mind virus in our public institutions, which is worse than any super flu. The cementing down of the idea that there are 100 genders and that a biological bloke with the full meat and 2 veg is a lady now and can use a female changing room. So the uniparty have run aground, they've lost their way, the country is in decline. Where does that leave us? Well, the United Kingdom is knee-deep in debt. It's divided, diluted by unchecked mass immigration, and infiltrated on a daily basis by undocumented men in a channel crisis, which is a humanitarian, economic and national security disaster, all on the watch of the uniparty. It's a hot mess. So, as they celebrate becoming Britain's biggest political force and are streets ahead of their rivals in the polls, the question this morning is a simple one on Talk Breakfast. Are Reform the answer? We have the questions, but are they the answer? Now, the question is not about what Nigel Farage, their leader, said or didn't say when he was 15 years old. I know that private school environment, particularly in the 70s. Those boys were a lot of jumped up, arrogant toe rags. They all were. And so to focus on that non-story, this nothing burger, is an insult to the British people. Because in fact, there are questions to pose to Nigel Farage and Reform UK. And it's not about school playground insults. It's more important than that. Do Reform's numbers add up? They're going to slash taxes, of which I approve. But how are they going to pay for it? They're going to stop the boats, of which I approve. But how are they going to do it? They're going to eradicate political correctness and woke lunacy in our police forces, our judiciary. They're going to turn the BBC back into a public service broadcaster in the service of the public. They're going to take on the blob, cut waste and shrink the state. Fantastic! But how are they going to do it? Is Reform UK a truly democratic party? Or is it a one-man band and a personality cult? These are the questions that the media should be asking and are not. And they're the questions that I will be asking as Nigel Farage prepares for a likely stint in government. Now, we can all agree, Britain needs a political, economic and social revolution. We need a reset. We need to unplug the whole country and just plug it back in again and start over. Britain needs change and then some. But does it need reform? You tell me. 0344 499 1000. Chris is in Epsom. Good morning, Chris. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Morning, Mark. It's been a few weeks since we've spoken.
Oh, listen, I've missed you. Honestly, you promised you'd stay in touch. Now, Chris, I want to get to your discussion about maritime law and the boats in just a moment. But the question today, one of the headline questions, is reform the answer? What say you?
It's not the final answer, but yes, they're on the right path. I actually come from a third-generation Tory family. I've lost the plot with the Conservatives. I'm finished with them. And there are too many hand-wringing, knicker-wetting Liberals that are parading as Conservatives to get the vote, but they're not. Now, I actually took the step, which most people wouldn't do. I actually took the step. I went to my first political conference. I went to Reform's conference, and I booked myself into one of the top hotels right near the venue.
Nice.
Because I wanted to meet some of the people. And on the first evening there, I met Dame Andrea Jenkins. From that moment forward, I was able to speak to every top member of the Reform Party except Nigel. He was rushing around everywhere.
Of course.
All I managed was a handshake and good luck. But I spoke to Richard, I spoke to David, I spoke to Lee, I spoke to all of them, and I do believe that they are on the right path. Yeah, they've got the mountain that they've got to climb is absolutely incredible. We've got 40, because you've got to look back before you can take care of today. You've got to look back at what created today, and what created today was Blair. With his open borders, his adoption of international laws.
Yeah.
Another fact that people don't remember or don't realise, that Labour moved 1 million people from unemployment payment to sickness payment to massage the employment figures. Then you had Brown that came in. It was a complete disaster. With the selling off our gold reserve, but telling everybody he was going to do it beforehand, so the price crashed.
And by the way, one of the first chancellors in history, Chris, to borrow during a period of economic growth.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't forget, he was the one that raided the pension schemes that has put this country in trouble for its old age pensioners now. That is coming to bite us now, what he did back then. Now, all of these things you've got to take on board. Then you've got Johnson, who promised us to get immigration down to tens of thousands, and that, I think it was 900,000 on his last watch.
Yeah.
So let's not go too deep into it, but you've got to look at the history before you can look at today.
So I think you've got cautious optimism about Reform UK. Before I get to Mary, I want to ask you whether they're going to stop the boats or not. That's the number one issue in the country. You've got thoughts on this?
Here's a plan to stop the boats. Okay? Under international maritime law, okay, if you're at sea and you see a ship or boat in trouble, you are obliged to go and help. Now, if we put Royal Navy ships, and to start with Royal Marines in fast ribs in international waters, as those dinghies hit international waters, it would be legal to take control of those dinghies and take them back to France, because the law states that you take them to the nearest, safest port. Okay? Now, people, the French are going to kick off. If they kick off, we have 120 billion trade deficit with France. So we remove a fishing license. We stop buying vegetables and fruits from France. The farmers and the fishermen would control the French government in a heartbeat. All right? And we wouldn't be breaking the law. What we would be doing is we'd be showing that we have a backbone and we are Great Britain. Now, what I would do with the ones that are here, all right, I would build. The MOD is the biggest landowner in the country. Now, they could build very swiftly. I would call them detention camps. I wouldn't build buildings on them. I would get UN refugee tents, which are approved. I would offer them. I would put obviously humanitarian services in there. Like I would have doctors, nurses there to help the people. But I would also, there would be structure there. There would be, while we find out who they are, we would give them English lessons. We would teach them English law. We would teach them what our culture is. All right? And so that the ones that do end up staying have got a chance of assimilating, because we're letting people in and we're telling them nothing. Now, I'm well-travelled. I spent 9 years as a senior member of a large travel group, and I travelled all over the world. And, I'm also ex-forces. I never had a problem going to any of the third world countries, into some of the really, really bad areas. And I always wore a nice watch, all right? Now, here's the thing. I went for a meal with a dining club 2 weeks ago in London, and I was getting dressed, and I put my brightening on. And then I thought about it. And I thought, you know what, I'm not going to wear that in London. And I took it off, and I put my Apple Watch back on. Now, for me to do that, ex-para, ex-SAS, because I don't want the problem. Not that I couldn't deal with it. I don't want the problem. And that, if I've got that mindset, what the hell are ordinary people thinking?
Who needs Nigel Farage? Chris in Epsom for Prime Minister. Chris, I wish we had longer because you talk so much sense. But call me again soon and have a great Saturday. Mary's in Hemel Hempstead. Mary, should illegals be allowed to work?
Well, as one of your callers said earlier, how do you know who they are? You have to, when you apply for a job, they want to know, for example, where you live, your background, have you a criminal record?
Correct.
How are you going to do that when these people are denying what their past is?
And what it also means, Mary, because these folk are amazingly free to roam at the moment anyway, but it means that they could be stuffing carrier bags in Sainsbury's or Aldi, working in a school. Goodness knows what sort of roles they could have if they're allowed to work.
Yeah, but you know, this migrant problem, a lot of the problem is that they are allowed to freely roam. People want them contained. We don't know who they are, where they've come from. Now, the chap who was just speaking, he made absolutely 100%. And with regards to Mike Neville, what he was saying was sense. And I don't understand why Nigel hasn't snapped him up as an advisor or even a candidate. I don't know. But I'm a member of Reform. I have supported Nigel for years. But I'm prepared to accept that the damage that is being done by this government and the previous governments I'm prepared to accept some of what they've done is undone for the best. And with regards to the blob, sack them. Those that don't follow the line, sack them. And when there's been quite a few sackings, they will then come to the decision they'll either have to get work or they go.
Mary, completely agree with you, especially if you get rid of the bosses, right? You get heads of department. If they start to roll, someone comes in to deliver the will of the people and to follow the manifesto of our next elected government, then we will have the change that the country needs. Mary, thank you so much for that. This is Talk Breakfast. 0344 499 1000. Should illegal immigrants be allowed to work? More on that next.
This journey of me following the migrants went from sort of 10 in the morning, all around the clock, to late at night, to the point where, on buses, on trains, through streets, at every key point, French military police and the French police, they were there. They were on the bus, taking down notes, taking pictures, but not doing anything to deter the migrants or stop them, just being there.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now at 8:22 on Talk Breakfast, let me say that Talk is not just the home of common sense, it's the home of incredibly important, powerful journalism. Do not miss our exclusive Talk documentary, The Undercover Migrants. It includes extraordinary new footage of French police at every stage of the journey, doing nothing to stop migrants reaching the beaches. Here is a clip. Take a listen.
This journey of me following the migrants went from sort of 10 in the morning, all around the clock, to late at night, to the point where, on buses, on trains, through streets, all at every key point, the police, the French military police and the French police were, they were there. They were on the bus, taking down notes, taking pictures, but not doing anything to deter the migrants or stop them, just being there.
Devastating. This is an exclusive Talk documentary. It is called The Undercover Migrant. Watch the full investigation now on YouTube. Go to YouTube, search The Undercover Migrant, and up it will pop, and it's well worth a watch. Distressing but important. Let's now talk about a key issue of the day. It's one of the main topics of today's show. Zach Polanski, the leader of the Green Party, has said that illegal immigrants should be welcomed into this country and they should be allowed to work. Is that a good idea? Should they make a positive contribution and make use of their time and skills whilst they're in the country? Let's get the views now of Phil Dave, who is a broadcaster and journalist, and Jonathan Liss, who is a political commentator as well. Chaps, welcome to the studio. Jonathan, I think it's our first on-air encounter, first of many. What do you think about this? Do you agree with Polanski that illegal immigrants should be allowed to work?
Yes, I do. I think that we have a real problem right now where obviously people are coming in, they're coming in through unsafe routes. They come here and it's our duty to keep them at a basic standard of living. Obviously that's at some cost to the public purse, and obviously they're housed in accommodation because they don't have the means to accommodate themselves, etc., for the most part. And we would actually solve problems if we were to follow the lead of countries such as Sweden and Portugal, which allow asylum seekers to work as soon as they make an application after a very minimal period of waiting, and then they can support themselves and also pay into the exchequer.
Clearly, we can all agree that we don't want people getting in dinghies and crossing the channel. It's perilous. People die in the channel.
I suspect for different reasons, but yes, we can all agree on that.
I think that we can all agree that we don't want asylum seekers to die.
Right, so can we all agree?
We can all agree we don't want asylum seekers to cross the channel.
Can we therefore agree that we don't want asylum seekers crossing the channel?
Do you not care if they die when they cross the channel?
I don't care if they die. It's
well, I just thought I said we all agree with that, and then you chose quite carefully not to agree with that.
I think I made it very clear that I don't want them to cross the channel, and you take that whatever way you want to.
Well, I'm asking you, what is one of the reasons that you don't want to see them come to harm?
I didn't say I want them to come to harm.
Well, that's what I'm asking. It's one of the reasons you don't want them to cross the channel, that you don't want to see them come to harm.
I just don't care enough about them.
Okay, well, that's an honest answer.
Well, I think
they don't care about me. They don't care about coming over here and taking our tax money, so why should I care about them?
I mean, they are human beings, but I suppose that's a good reason, isn't it?
They don't really act like human.
Well, we will come to the details and the plight of these people. Well, look, Jonathan, we're here to debate everything, so let's actually really flesh this out. So I was attempting to create a consensus here that we can agree that the boat crossings are bad. Would we agree with that, Jonathan?
Yeah, of course they are.
Yeah, because these are very, very dodgy vessels which are not seaworthy, dinghies. Okay,
and they're funded by very, very nasty, organised criminal gangs.
So with that in mind,
have a monopoly over this.
Correct. So if we agree that the boat crossings are unedifying and wrong and dangerous, therefore, surely it's a bad idea to reward such a crossing with the ability to work, which is a massive right that's normally enjoyed only by British people.
It's well, that's not true that it's enjoyed by British people. There are hundreds of thousands of non-British people who have work permits, and the government can choose to give work.
Yeah, that's a right. That's a right for which
they've
they
come
apply.
here legally.
Okay. Well, what I'm saying is that
it's not an automatic right to work, is it?
No, and I didn't say there should be automatically. I said that we could follow the route of countries such as Portugal and Sweden, where you have to apply for the right to work as an asylum seeker, and you can get that right unless there are.
Or we could actually follow the lead of countries like Poland or maybe even America and actually send people away from the country that we don't want to enter illegally. That's a good idea. Well, it's very simple. I don't actually sort of see offering those who break into this country, for want of a better term, the opportunity to work. It's just us graciously accepting it, and I don't accept it. You know, for all intents and purposes, this country is being invaded, and the sooner Britain wakes up and realises that, the better we'll be.
The issue you've got is that if you are able to work, which is a right for which many, fight in this country and have to sort of fill out a lot of forms, you are rewarding the decision to cross the channel. Therefore, you're encouraging the boat crossings, which we all agree should stop.
Mark, if you take
it's an incentive, isn't it?
If you take it back to the beginning and the basic principle that the boat crossings are bad, and you have a monopoly currently that is operated by these criminal gangs, if you were to supply safe and legal routes for people to come here, upon which
they exist.
Because no, they don't.
Yes, all the people that come, people that come to this country legally who apply for asylum will have that asylum process checked, and they are jumping the queue. The people that cross the channel are jumping the queue for those who have a valid right to be here.
There are two ways that asylum seekers can come here. The first one is by coming on a visa and then illegally overstaying it in order to claim asylum. The second is by getting on a small boat or a lorry across the channel. There are no other ways.
So apply for a visa then?
Well, funnily enough, Phil, if you are fleeing a war in Sudan, which is currently the greatest
They're not in Sudan, they're coming from France, they're safe. If they want to stay in France and apply for a visa, then great, no problem.
If you are fleeing conflict in Sudan, which is currently the gravest humanitarian crisis in the world, and you want to claim asylum in this country because you speak English, because you have relatives here, or whatever reason it might be,
fairly sure they speak English in France.
There are many, many reasons why someone might want to
wait a minute. Either they're fleeing for their lives and need safety, or they need to be in a country where they can chat in the same language. Both can't be the case.
There is no...
They either want safety or they don't.
There is no sort of legal...
beggars
order.
can't be choosers.
There's no legal order that demands in international law that people have to sort of claim asylum in the first safe country they come to. Ironically, the only place that has such a scheme, which hasn't really worked, is the EU with the Dublin regulation. And guess what? Britain couldn't even be part of that now because we've left the EU. So that option's out. I thought you'd love the Dublin regulation, but anyway, the Dublin regulation's out. But that was obviously very. I didn't realise we could have hecklers on this programme, Mark. But obviously...
You can heckle him in a minute. Heckle him back.
I've heckled him many times over the years. It gets boring after a while. The thing about the Dublin regulation is that countries such as Italy and Greece, guess what? They don't love it because they are the first port of call for so many migrants crossing the Mediterranean, that they say that other countries don't do their bit. And I guarantee you that if there was some crisis that we can't envisage right now to the west of us, and refugees were fleeing from the west into Europe, coming first to Ireland and the United Kingdom, we would be saying there is no way, hey, hang on Europe, you have to do your bit as well. We can't shoulder all the burden of this crisis. You have to take some of these people as well, because you can't have as a policy that you outsource a crisis to the country to your left or to the country to your right. You just can't do that. So we have to. It's a collective crisis. There has to be collective solutions. We have to act in solidarity with other countries that are doing their bit as well. We can't just absent ourselves to an asylum regime.
Phil, we don't have to do anything. I'm not being funny, but if this country collectively decides we do not want to welcome, so you don't want to welcome, please, it's a bit blooming late for that now, isn't it? If we don't want to welcome a collection of potential security threats to this country, then funnily enough, we're perfectly at liberty to turn around and say, no thanks, don't want it. And why on earth should our taxpayers' money go on it? I don't want to pay for these cretins.
The bottom line is that if you allow people to work having entered the country illegally, that is an incentive to cross the channel. You'll have more boat crossings, not less.
Let's be honest, Mark, they've got loads of incentives already.
Because the criminal gangs who you're worried about, and I'm worried about too, will be able to say, you'll be able to go to England and you'll get a job.
Look, I'm not saying there aren't potential problems, but as with everything, if you change a system, there are potentially unintended consequences. Obviously, the scheme would have to be sort of set out and thought through carefully, and policymakers would have to look at countries that currently have that system and find out how they manage to avoid those pitfalls. But as a general principle, a real problem that we have is that asylum seekers are not able to work. So people have this idea of these people just staying all day.
You call them asylum seekers. I mean, they're illegal immigrants, and many of them shouldn't be in the country.
They are asylum seekers. It's not a crime to claim asylum. They are literally asylum seekers.
No, but some of them are carrying out crimes, aren't they?
That is why the government is housing them, because
many
they're asylum
are
seekers.
economic
If they weren't
migrants.
asylum seekers, they wouldn't be housed in that accommodation.
Okay, and if they're so desperate for asylum and so afraid of what's happening in Sudan, why don't they stay in France?
Well, as I told you, there are many, many reasons why people
they're fleeing for their lives. They arrive in France.
Why people go to different countries.
Well, all right. So that's your admission that the reason why they want to leave France and come here is because they get a better deal here.
I was going to say, could it be the benefits they get here?
I said there are many, many reasons, Mark. I listed 2 of them already, that they might speak English. Or...
Who cares? Who cares what goddamn language they speak?
Well,
I couldn't care less.
Well, I don't.
Excuse me.
Well, I don't care what you care about
Excuse me. At 8:33 in the morning, if I decide to pitch up in Spain, and I've gone there because I've got a second cousin that speaks Spanish. Who cares what language I want to speak? It's Spain, and they speak Spanish there.
Well, you have a right to claim asylum in Spain, and you're allowed to.
But I have no right to go and live in a country where they speak my chosen language.
You have a right to claim asylum in Spain, and the Spanish authorities will judge your asylum.
Now, here's my next question for you. You're on the political left. Why do the left care more about people overseas than the poor of this country?
Unlike the right, he doesn't care about either of them. I don't think that's true, actually. True. Yes, it is.
No, it's
yes,
not.
it is.
No, it's
they
not.
always say, oh, look after our own, and then the minute that you want to sort of, well, OK, fine, let's increase benefits to the most vulnerable.
I'm on the right, I care deeply about British people.
That's a lie. That's a lie, because that's complete misinformation. The welfare state grew massively under Margaret Thatcher, David Cameron, Theresa May, John Major, you name it. This country has had an expanding welfare state since 1979, so that's simply not true.
And furthermore, the idea of stand on your own 2 feet actually comes from encouraging people to sustain their own lives, funnily enough.
But Jonathan, I reach out to your conscience on this one as a man of the left, which is why the left have simply ignored the working class of this country and are more worried about illegals who are quite safe in France crossing the channel in a dinghy. You talk about the right to work. Well, there aren't enough jobs for British people here already. There is growing unemployment thanks to Rachel from Account's amazing budget. So the bottom line is the country's going down the toilet, and you're more worried about illegal foreigners than the people in this country, my viewers and listeners, who are struggling to make ends meet. Why has the left abandoned the poor?
Well, there are plenty of vacancies in all kinds of industries.
No, there aren't. Ask my listeners and viewers. Call the show if you are having trouble getting work. Because unemployment is going up.
Unfortunately, there's 2 reasons why work is such a problem in this country. Primarily because we've spent so many decades, and this is something that started under Tony Blair, so many decades telling people to work above their means, OK? I'm not being funny, but there are some people... I would quite like the idea of being...
You're not being funny, Phil.
Have you finished? I'm not being... as far as I'm concerned, I personally would love the idea of being a surgeon, but sadly I'm not academic enough to study medicine, so can't do that. You know, like the idea, but I know my limits. And people have been told for so many years, aim higher, right? Go way above what you're actually capable of, and then of course they're setting up for failure. That's one thing. The other problem you've got is the benefit system. It is far too easy for people to sit on their backsides and earn enough money without even needing to lift a finger. Not good enough. And the third problem is cheap labour. So all of these problems combined is the reason why we've got major problems with the job market in this country.
Going back to my, if I was a passionate socialist, I would advocate stopping the boats.
You were at one point.
You never know. Do you know,
maybe he's just come to his senses.
No, I just try and always go for the best policies. But I have voted Labour in the past, and if they had a good platform, I'd vote for them again. But it's not looking good at the moment. Why have the left abandoned the poor of this country?
Well, you'd be surprised to learn that I don't share that particular analysis.
Well, your support for illegal immigrants is bad news for poor people here. It is.
I don't support...
You can't have both.
Well, that's...
You can't have open borders and take care of the poorest.
Thank you for your opinion, Judge Dolan, but I happen to disagree with you.
It's a fact.
It's not a fact. It's not a fact. It is, in fact, an opinion, and I happen to disagree with it.
OK, so which budget does the cost of £15 billion a year to accommodate illegal immigrants, what budget does that come out of? Can you imagine how transformative that $15 billion a year would be if you gave it to the poor?
I just don't accept...
But you don't care.
I don't... Well, you can talk at me if you want to.
Go on.
No, carry on. You carry on. You tell me what I think. It's more interesting, obviously.
Well, the cost of illegal immigration for the accommodation of these people is £15 billion a year. If you stop the boats unilaterally and stopped allowing people to decide which country they want to go to because of the chosen language that they wish to use, you would save £15 billion. You could give that to poor people.
Look, the government always has choices to make. We also have a central bank. We have a lot of ways to raise money. As you know, that the government can always find ways to get money when it needs to.
Really?
Whether
our expenses.
No, that's not true. Where's that coming from? That money?
Well, I'm talking about in
Ask
general.
Rachel Reed, she'll tell you.
We can talk about monetary theory if you want to, but the idea that the economy is like a credit card where there's a set amount of money, that's just not true.
Ask the Labour Chancellor. She cannot borrow any more money.
You'd be amazed to learn that I don't actually support all of Rachel Reeves' policies, and I think that she could actually sort of borrow more money and not scare investors and all kinds of things, and raise more taxes on different kinds of people. And
does that mean more wealth creators?
More savings?
We can have a conversation about the budget if you want to, Mark, but I'm saying that it's not either.
You've not addressed my issue. You've not addressed my issue.
Because I don't accept the premise of your question.
You could give, if you ended illegal immigration, you would save £15 billion a year. You could give that to poor people.
Well, first of all, that's not even true, because even under someone like Farage's policy, they're going to be sort of bunging thousands of pounds into people's pockets for them to leave the country. That's going to cost billions of pounds. So it's just what you're saying. It's just absolute nonsense on its own terms. Who'd have guessed?
Okay, well, listen,
but it's
folks,
cheaper than keeping them here.
You just said it wouldn't cost any money, and that's obviously nonsense.
It's all about opinions, and we're going to continue this conversation. Should illegal immigrants be allowed to work in this country? It's all about opinions. More of these next. Let me know what you think as well. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, Mark. Says Rob, great show. You can't have mass unlimited immigration and have a welfare state at the same time. If you want unlimited immigration, you need to get rid of the welfare state or the country will go bust. Sean says, if an illegal immigrant comes here because they speak English, why do we spend so much on translators? And it goes on. Listen, let's get back to this because, Jonathan, you know, I really, really can try to appeal to your ideological outlook, okay, which is a concern for the poor. I mean, that's really definitely the domain of the left, isn't it? The people who are at the lower end of the economic ladder, the people who are struggling, not the sort of fat cats and the rich people, right? That is the area, that is the realm
politics
of the left.
of envy.
Well, no, I think that's a valid offer from the left.
I like the politics of cruelty on your side.
But
common sense.
So many of my viewers and listeners are very, very upset by illegal immigration because it is a cost to this country. Your answer to that is to borrow and tax more, which will be a responsibility for future generations, rather than stop the problem.
No, I didn't say that. I said that even under your system, the government would have to spend money. The government always has to spend money. We are not spending comparatively more money than many comparable European economies, and we take far fewer asylum seekers than other countries.
So would you like to take more?
Do you mind if I ask what I think is a perfectly reasonable question? Do you
I'm
accept
sure it'll be very reasonable, Phil, yeah.
Yes, OK, right. Sarcasm gets nowhere. Do you think, genuinely, that what you would like to achieve is actually going to cost this country less than if we got a grip and said, enough, we actually don't have the capability or the infrastructure or indeed the money to welcome floodloads of people?
But I don't accept that we don't have the capability or the infrastructure or the money.
So where do you think the money comes from, though? Seriously, I don't understand how you think that this country can just afford... We're already in debt to the tune of trillions of pounds. How much more money do you want us to spend as a country before we actually start saying, we have some problems in this country we need to spend that money on?
The reason that the government is currently spending money is partly that people are coming and we don't allow them to work. It's that there's a huge backlog in asylum claims that dates from the last government, which deliberately kind of sort of hamstrung the system in order to kind of make it for optical purposes. If you went back to a system that you had in the early years of the new Labour government, Blair's government, where you had actually a very, very manageable number of people. You had cases dealt with very, very quickly. And then you had a system for sort of dealing with people whose claims were not successful. Then that is a system. I mean, there are sort of divisions on the left about what you do with people whose claims are not successful. I happen to, I'm quite open about the fact that I support migration and that I don't think that being an economic migrant is terrible. And in my ancestors who were fleeing pogroms in the late 19th century, early 20th century, of course they were refugees, but they were also economic migrants. They were coming to Britain for a better life.
Yes, but they weren't given benefits.
And that has been the ambition of people since time immemorial.
And
migration is as old as humanity.
Do you think people crossing the channel,
life for themselves.
do you think the people crossing the channel in a boat deserve a better life?
I think that everyone deserves a better life.
I don't think they deserve
let me
They
finish.
don't deserve a better
If you
life.
ask me a question, let me answer it. I do think that everyone, of course, deserves the chance of having...
my question.
Everyone
Jonathan
has
speak.
Everyone has the chance.
He's done nothing but.
Everyone has a chance to seek a better life. Obviously, if you're claiming asylum, that has to be within the remit of asylum seeking. You can't come here and say, I'm an economic migrant. I want to make, have a better life myself. Obviously, that's not the purpose of that particular avenue for coming here. So, of course, there has to be a difference between economic migration and asylum, but I'm not opposed to economic migration. That is the history of migration over millennia.
And what would you say to my viewers and listeners who are struggling, people that can't find work, and what you're going to do is allow people to work who have crossed the channel, entered the country illegally, they get a job in Tesco or in a building site or as a window cleaner, a job that cannot be done by a poor person in this country who needs the work?
I would say that the problems that people have, and people do have a lot of problems in this country, they are not caused by migrants or asylum seekers, and it is the ambition of rich people, powerful people, and has been for centuries, to pit working people, poor people against each other. So
Hang on.
Don't look at the real
No, this is
cause.
nonsense. Sorry. So you tell me that the grooming gang scandal that we've seen a lot of, that's got nothing to do with migration. So we've seen people from certain nationalities who actually make it part of their... I don't even want to call it culture, because it's not culture, it's revolting, to actually sort of groom young girls and do God knows what to them. That's nothing to do with migration. That's disgusting. What, seriously, come on. You can't be that blinded to it, surely.
Care to address that?
If you look at the problem of child sexual abuse in this country, there are an extremely wide range of perpetrators that are perpetrating child
so
sexual
we're
abuse.
gaslighting a quarter of a million girls now, are we?
No.
Pakistani Muslims did it. The end. End of show, 8:46.
Do you actually want me to be here? I mean, you seem very, very happy to tell me what I think. If you want me to go, and you can just sort of put a cardboard cutout here, and you can say, well, Jonathan would say this. I mean, I can actually tell you what I think.
Will you acknowledge the ethnic element of the grooming gang scandal?
Will I what? Sorry.
Will you acknowledge the ethnic element of the grooming gang scandal? No answer. The answer is
yes or no.
It has an ethnic element. That's why these crimes happen.
What is the point of inviting me onto your show?
You won't answer the question.
Because you won't let me answer it.
You want to do a
yes
woolly
or
answer.
No.
You want to do... OK, go on then. Give me your long answer.
I'm happy to look at the ethnicity of people, and I think that you can broaden it out to, if it's useful, if people who are conducting this inquiry think it's useful to look at that, then I don't have an objection to it. I would ask why they think it's useful, and if they can offer an answer to that, then I'm happy to proceed on that basis. Right. I want to know what the end game is.
Take that as a yes.
What the end game is for people who are so desperate, A, to focus on Pakistani perpetrators of this disgusting crime. I think it's because you often hear people who you didn't hear a peep out of people when it's sort of girls being groomed by white grooming gangs. And guess what? There are white grooming gangs, and when they're on, guess what? I don't hear them being talked about very much on Talk, for example, for some reason.
Well, right, so shall we say, I can tell you why that is very simply.
Go on then.
And it is because that if we've got enough of these revolting individuals who carry out crimes like this country, we don't need to import any more. So as far as I'm concerned, yes, there is a major problem if someone has come over here, probably illegally, and then starts doing that to the children of this country. I find that sick.
So the people that you're talking about, who've been in this country for years.
Oh, good. Well, that makes it all right.
Years, a lot of them were born here, actually. I don't know. Is the end game that you think that we should deport people who are British citizens who've been here all their lives? That's a dangerous road to go down. People never want to talk about what the end game is. Fine, you want to talk about the link between the proposed link between Pakistani people, Pakistani culture, and grooming gangs or child rape or whatever it might be.
It's not proposed.
Whatever it might be. So what is the answer to this? Do you want to see mass deportations of British people, British-born people, British citizens?
I would like to see mass deportation of cretinous individuals who think it's okay to come over here and rape children. That's what I'd like to see. Mass deportation of people who think it's okay to come over here and rape children. That's what I want. I admit it, happily. And you don't want that? You don't want to see the back of these individuals?
Now, Jonathan, you seem concerned about the focus on ethnicity as some kind of far-right agenda.
I'm not here to answer your questions, Phil.
You seem to... The undercurrent of what you're saying about the grooming gangs is a focus on ethnicity, maybe some kind of far-right trope, where in fact it was very clear that a fear of being called racist and a fear of a focus on avoiding ethnicity is how these crimes managed to happen, which is 250,000 young girls raped. So that's not great, is it?
That has been debunked, that claim. And look, if you...
Sorry, did you say it's been debunked?
The claim that people, that there was, if I understood you correctly, that it's kind of political correctness that allowed this to go on so long.
Correct. Fear of being called racist.
The evidence that we have so far,
they did it.
Is actually
the show.
Why do you keep saying that, Mark? It's clearly not the end of the show if I'm halfway through my answer. If you want it to be the end of the show, I'm very happy to leave the studio and then you can carry on the show just the two of you.
I'm quite
I
shocked.
think Ofcom does require you to have some kind of balance.
Where is the empathy for the victims?
If you actually allow me to speak, I would try to give you an answer, but you don't want to do that.
You do these long, woolly answers that basically...
Because sometimes life is not about yes or no answers, Mark.
Okay, I mean, I think yes or no is the ethnicity of the grooming gangs is an open and shut case of it was an aggravating factor.
Well,
these were racially motivated crimes.
If you wanted to have a show that was just called 20 Questions, that would be a very different kind of show. But I thought it was meant to be a talk show, as suggested by the name of the network, in which we actually talk about things in rather than slightly longer phrasing than yes or no.
Do you acknowledge that we have glossed over the ethnicity of so many criminals in this country?
Sorry.
In the end, why are Labour voters deserting the project?
Well, that's an entirely different question.
No, it's all part of it.
It's all
part of it. Yes, it is. The grooming gangs are part of it. Are they not?
Reform didn't even suggest.
Well, apparently to the know-it-all here, they're not. So who knows?
Reform did not even have a grooming gangs national inquiry in its manifesto. So the idea that Reform has been banging the drum about this since time immemorial is not true. The Conservatives, also huge bandwagon jumpers, didn't have this inquiry in their manifesto either. Kemi Badenoch never even talked about it until it became politically expedient to do so. The idea that she's been some sort of champion of these poor girls is a total lie.
Yeah. Okay. You know the problem with inquiries are, very quickly, sorry, the problem with inquiries is that they're just smoke and mirrors. It's an excuse to pretend the government is doing something about a pretty serious problem when they're actually doing nothing.
Let me tell you at 8:51 that millions of people agree with Phil. Millions of people agree with Jonathan, OK? The country is split on this. I want your thoughts, 0344 499 1000. Next up, they are now the biggest political party in the country. Are Reform the answer? See you in a second.
this journey of me following the migrants went from sort of 10 in the morning, all around the clock, to late at night, to the point where, on buses, on trains, through streets, at every key point, French military police and the French police, they were there. They were on the bus, taking down notes, taking pictures, but not doing anything to deter the migrants or stop them, just being there.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Go down. At 8:54, you're listening to Talk Breakfast, and so many opinions coming in thick and fast. Mark, you won't read this out, but Jonathan just doesn't get it. We don't want these people here at all. We don't want to pay for them. We don't want our women and children put in danger by them. Stop all benefits, arrest anyone coming here illegally and deport, and re-migrate all of the millions already here. And Jane says, good morning, Mark. My 24-year-old grandson lost his job in the summer, still can't get a job. This has driven me mad. Hooray for Phil, says Jane. Thank you for that.
No.
Reform UK, are they the answer?
Yes. Next.
Are you sure?
I'm not
internally
sure.
Democratic?
No. I mean, look, the more padded out answer, of course I'm not sure. I don't think anyone can be sure that anyone is the answer in this country at the moment, because primarily, I really don't like politicians as a standard rule of thumb. However, I will say this. I think given what we are lumbered with and have been lumbered with pretty much since 1992 when John Major was elected, successive governments have just been one letdown after the other. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm quite up for the idea of trying something different, because let's be honest, it can't be much worse.
No, most definitely. Reform UK, the answer? Jonathan?
No, Mark, I don't think so.
Now listen, you've gone very quiet, right? We have had a major disagreement this morning. And the reason why I've had a major disagreement is because I think that the left have completely lost the plot, right? I think you guys are insane. Okay, you're entitled to your views, but...
Thanks for clarifying.
I really do think that you're insane.
Right.
Because what you're saying is that we should be comfortable with large-scale illegal immigration. We should give these people jobs, okay? Which means that working class people will find it hard to get a job because we've given it to an illegal immigrants. The cost is enormous, it's billions, and you'd rather that go to people overseas who have fled tyranny in France, apparently, at the cost of the poor in this country. I honestly can't process it, and I wouldn't mind to find a landing spot for you and I ideologically to make sense of it. You've said there's lots of things we can do to raise money. That's not true. Rachel Reeves cannot borrow any more money because the cost of government debt has gone up. It's 100 billion on the interest alone this year and every year. Meanwhile, you could raise taxes on the rich. Well, we've got the highest burden since the war, and rich people are leaving. And let me help you with this. When they leave, we have to pay the tax that they used to pay when they were here. And that's why I think that this is insanity. And I reach to your common sense, your intelligence, and your humility as a human being to understand that what you're saying is madness.
Okay.
And do you care to counter that?
Not particularly.
No, for God's sake.
Because you can't.
No, it's not because it's because you don't actually want me to. This is the Mark Dolan show. You've got what you want to say. You're throwing to me sort of 50 different accusations there. I can't possibly address all of them.
How do we bring Mark?
Actually, Mark, I don't particularly want to, actually. This is not...
It's because you can't.
No, it's not. It's not, actually. It's because I don't think that you're a particularly good presenter. You're not sort of giving me... You're not giving me a fair chance to respond to anything. You cut me off as soon as I start talking. You tell me what you think I think. And this is not a sort of an environment where we can have actually a rational or pragmatic or reasonable debate about a single thing. So why would we bother?
Well, why are you here then?
I don't know.
I mean, we're on the air now. In 30 seconds, I could explain to you why.
I have tried to tell you about my position for the last 45 minutes. You clearly don't want to hear it. If you want to ask me a specific question, I'll answer it. But if you want to sort of throw
how do we raise more money?
Bilge at me and then say, respond to that then. Obviously, I'm not going to do that.
How do we raise more money?
To what?
Well,
to pay for what you want to pay for.
Yeah, because you want illegal immigration, which is...
I don't want illegal immigration, Mark.
It's all
I
gonna
want there
cost
to be
money.
a fair asylum system where people can, where claims are processed effectively
But they're
and
poor.
quickly
Those
and
people
cheaply.
okay, those people are poor.
And the majority of people, when you do have an asylum system, the majority of people are actually judged to be legitimate asylum seekers.
Sure, but what they are is...
What about the ones who aren't?
You say sure, but then you can't just say what I'm saying.
That's true.
But what about the ones who aren't legitimate?
Hold fire, because they'll be poor people, so they will therefore be a burden on the state. And how do we pay for that? Where are you going to raise the money?
Well, people, if you give people the chance to contribute, then many people actually do contribute.
Most of them will stay poor.
Well,
that's true.
Well, there are a lot of poor people in this country, and I think
we're
that
bringing more poor in.
There's a very simple and effective answer.
If you were to be able to, you don't want me to speak, so why do you even pretend to want to let me speak? You just carry on talking, because that's clearly what you want to do.
You haven't done anything but talk.
There you go. Well, listen, folks, it is all about opinions. My thanks to Jonathan Liss and to Phil Dave. Your reaction to this conversation, 0344 499 1000. Lots more to come. The political editor of The Sun on Sunday is next. Ooh.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It's never boring around here, is it? Even Dave the engineer woke up. (9:03), this is Talk Breakfast. Lovely to have your company. I'm Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. And positive breaking news for the King as he scales back his cancer treatment. Could this spell a bold and productive new chapter in the reign of Charles III? Supermarkets and shops should do more to tackle the scourge of shoplifters, says a police chief. Pressure grows to allow illegal immigrants to be allowed to work in the country, and they've done it. Reform UK are now the biggest political party in Britain. But my question to you this morning at 9:03. Are Reform the answer? 0344 499 1000, that's my phone number, and Tommy is taking your calls this morning. And should illegal immigrants have the right to work in this country? That was the subject of a very lively political debate that we've just had between Jonathan Liss and Phil Dave on the show. But it's over to you now, 0344 499 1000. What did you make of that discussion we had? Why have the left abandoned the poor and the working class of this country? That's my view. What is yours? Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Or leave us a voice note. So much to get through. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television and radio airwaves. You can listen to us on DAB+. If you want to watch our output, just head to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. And I've got a fun thing for you before 10. What is your famous Christmas film? I might get Jonathan Liss back in to debate that. Scrooge? Bad Santa? What is your favourite Christmas film? Because we're going to discuss it with Virgin Radio's Steve Denyer before the end of the hour. The greatest Christmas film. What would it be? So there we are. We're going to kick off, I'm delighted to say, in the company of a marvellous journalist. It's the Whitehall correspondent for the Sun newspaper, Sophia Slade. Good morning, Sophia.
Good morning.
Very good to have you in the studio. Well, one of the big debates we've been having all morning is about Reform UK. They're now the biggest political party in the country, which is a significant moment.
Yeah, it really, really is. It's huge. I mean, they're shouting this from the rooftops, and you can understand why. Actually, I was thinking about it before I came in. You know, they're beating the Labour Party. The Labour Party gets its power from its members. You know, the Tories have never had big membership like Labour have, but Reform are beating Labour, A, the party of government, and B, a party driven by members and derives all of its power from its members. So that's quite something, and I think it shows that there's a quiet sort of earthquake taking place across the country. And I don't know about you, when you work in journalism or politics, people like to tell you their opinions and their views on politics. And I've never really had people tell me before, oh, I've just signed up for the Labour Party, or oh, I've just signed up for the Conservative Party. I have had a few people tell me, well, I've just signed up for Reform. I love Nigel, or I like what they're saying, and I'm now a paid up member. And I've never really had that before. So do you think it reflects something that's, well, it's evident something is happening across the country?
Yes, and the sort of the shy Reform voters are getting less and less shy.
Definitely, definitely. I think previously, you know, I compare them a lot to the Conservative because they do share a lot of views and they have a lot of defectors.
Yeah.
But, you know, they were kind of people used to be a little bit quiet about being Conservative, and they used to be a little bit shy about it. We used to call them shy Tories. But I think with Reform, people are quite proud of it. They are shouting it from the rooftops. They've got the merch, the memorabilia, which is quite an American thing. I think they're getting quite into the Reform like hype, I suppose, and the Reform branding. And I did actually, before I came in, I was having a little Google after I read this story, and you know, I always think of UKIP. You know, I'm old enough to remember UKIP when they were this big fear, like the scary political party. David Cameron was terrified of UKIP. UKIP's membership came nowhere near this, I don't think.
Yeah.
From what I could see, you know, a quick Google, sort of 15, however many years ago it was, they nowhere near this membership, which is what, 250,000? I think it is. No, sorry, 268,000.
Well, that's right, approaching a third of a million. And
Huge.
This is a party that's only been in existence for a few years, less than a decade. It's only had Farage as leader since just in the run-up to July 2024, the election. Meanwhile, the Tories and Labour have been around for a century. I mean, this is unprecedented seismic growth.
It really, really is. And Nigel Farage said something along the lines of, you know, this is the death of the two-party system. And that is something I have heard from Labour politicians, from Conservative politicians. The Greens are hopeful that it's the death of the two-party system.
Yeah.
The Lib Dems are hopeful about this. And we could be in a scenario where the next general election is a sort of five-way vote, a five-party system rather than the traditional Labour or Tories. So it really is, it shows that our political system is really being shaken up, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the Tories fell away so badly after the election that it looked like Reform were the only show in town on the right, that they were going to essentially replace the Tories, statistically in relation to the polls they have done. But with Kemi Badenoch finding her political voice finally and having some momentum and looking very comfortable in her own skin, quite commanding at Prime Minister's questions and following Rachel Reeves' budget, in which I thought she slayed. Does this complicate things for Nigel Farage, a potential return of the Tories?
I think, well, my gut always sort of tells me that when we get close to a general election, I'm not talking about locals, which we've got coming up in May, when you get to the big one that everyone, that matters, people do tend to revert to type. People that were brought up in Labour families or Tory families do tend to go back to what they always knew. The thing that changed that was Brexit. The big Brexit vote kind of broke those traditions. It broke habits of a lifetime with lots of families and lots of Brits. So I do think there's an element where political parties are fair game now. There's less tradition. It's less ingrained in who you are and your identity. And I think Brexit, you'll see people that are traditional Labour voters or traditional Tory voters who voted Brexit, and there will be that crossover with Reform, right? Big Brexit, big beast like Nigel Farage heading that party.
Yeah, I mean, the big issue is that, there's been this focus on Nigel's possible alleged remarks as a teenager, which I think is an insult to the intelligence of my viewers and listeners and your readers at The Sun, because the focus should be, are they ready for government? How are they going to pay for those tax cuts? How are they going to take on the blob? How are they going to stop the boats? And that's going to be the conversation going forward. If they look like the heirs apparent, if Nigel Farage looks like Britain's next Prime Minister, then questions will be asked.
Totally. And that's when things get quite difficult, and you saw that actually sort of at the last election with the Green Party. They got a bit uncomfortable when journalists were really tearing into their manifesto because they were being taken seriously, and they got quite defensive about that. And I think Reform are going to find that, in the run-up to the locals and certainly the general election, journalists are going to and the great British public are going to very seriously be scrutinising their policies, saying, well, how are you going to pay for that? What does that mean for taxes? How are you running all these Reform councils that they won? So I think that will be quite a big test. And we know where they stand on immigration. We know where they stand on sort of, say, policing and tough on crime and things like that. But there'll be other areas where we're still sort of trying to tease out what their view is. They were a bit wobbly on sort of the two-child benefit cap, for example. They kind of didn't really find their feet on that for quite some time. So I think we will see certainly in the coming years, the sort of pressure being applied on other areas of economy, education, for example. I couldn't tell you what they want to do on education.
No, and the public will no doubt vote for change at the next election. I mean, that's always a sort of shorthand for every political party, isn't it? We're the change candidate. But I think you can't argue that Reform definitely would be, as perhaps Trump was in November of last year, definitely the change candidate. But they may inherit an economic mess. Already the country's got huge liabilities, and the cost of servicing our debt is £100 billion a year, and that's just the interest alone. Things potentially will be worse in 3 years' time based upon the economic news we've had this week.
Yes, more gloomy economic news. Sorry, I feel like that's every week when I come to see you. It's a bit gloomy on the economy front. But yes, we're sort of on recession watch, I suppose.
Yeah.
GDP fell 0.1% in October, and this is all over sort of, budget uncertainty. We remember that bonkers briefings in the lead up to the budget. But the two things, so in our big story on page 2 today, the two things that really stand out to me about sort of output plunging is construction and the services sector. And, for anyone that's been following the news or following the budget and last year's budget, won't be surprised that these areas are suffering. The national insurance increase on really hit hospitality sector. And pubs are really struggling. They're closing every day across this country. And this is something that they've been sort of screaming about for a long time. So I think people won't be surprised about that. So yes, whoever's the next government, and they're not going to have an easy job. I mean, as well, it's also determined by what's happening in Eastern Europe and the war. Things could turn around there, who knows?
Definitely, but fresh pressure on the Chancellor. I mean, you know, there was the Halloween budget, then there was the difficult second album, which many argue has been even more unlistenable. And here we go again. I mean, the mood music around the economy, it's just, there are really no green shoots, are there? And there's no hope for the future. And by the way, this is before the full impact of the budget, the most recent budget, has fed through to business. And this is before the workers' rights package has fed through to businesses as well. All of that is to come.
Yep, exactly. And there's a big fight over the workers' rights package still now. And you saw after the budget, the OBR report said, you know, it's not good for growth. It's not going to grow the economy. So with high taxes, high spending, I can't see that things are going to get better particularly quick. And also, you must speak to your viewers all the time. It's what you feel in your pocket, the pound in the pocket.
Most definitely. What are the other key stories that you're going to be looking at in tomorrow's paper?
So the another very big story is strikes. Doctors are planning to go on strike again next week, I think from Wednesday. They are balloting on a fresh offer from Health Secretary Wes Streeting, who it involves sort of better conditions and sort of prioritising UK-trained doctors for, I think, training posts. Yeah. And things like that, but no more cash. And it's turning quite bitter, to be honest, and a little bit nasty. You know, if you sort of look at the doctors on Twitter, they are, you know, physically rowing with the health secretary.
Is that
every day.
right?
Yeah, sort of tweeting each other. It's getting quite bitter.
Has it turned personal? A bit like me and Jonathan Liss.
I think it might have done, you know. No fisticuffs yet, but it's quite bitter. And remember, you know, Labour did give them a big pay rise. I think it was 28.9% over 3 years. They're pushing for, I think, a further 26%, I think, because they sort of say that sort of lost earnings from around 2008. So they're quite entrenched. The government doesn't want to give them any more money. The doctors are quite militant, to say the least, and are really pushing for more. The public's not on their side anymore. No. So that is something going against them. And I think a lot of doctors are actually quite reluctant to strike again because they know. And also, it's against the backdrop of a flu crisis. We've got a really serious flu bug going round. Hospitals are filling up, and ministers, let alone, you know, hospital chiefs, are really, really worried about this. And it's going to totally coincide with all of that.
Of late, I haven't found myself agreeing with the Prime Minister, but in a piece for The Guardian today, he has said the idea that the junior doctors, the resident doctors, would go on strike during this super flu spread is I think beyond, I can't remember if he did beyond imaginable or something. Beyond, I can't remember now,
belief.
Sorry. But look,
Belief.
thank you. That is why you're the Whitehall correspondent. Beyond belief. He's right, isn't he? I mean, it's you know,
strong
just to
words.
like, mate, read the room.
Yeah, and I think that says two things. That sort of, A, he's willing to take on the doctors and they don't want to give in financially on this. Yes. But also, B, I think it says we're brave enough because we know the public are not in favour of these strikes. So we know if we go for the doctors, the public's with us on it, kind of thing. Yeah. I don't think he would be so punchy if it was, you know, the nurses and the public were all on their side, kind of thing. I think it speaks to that, really. But it shows how quite bitter and aggressive, and I think quite how nasty this whole row has become. You know, the Prime Minister wading in, Health Secretary wading in every single day, doctors very, very entrenched, not willing to budge. So, but we'll find out Monday.
Most definitely, and it's going to have big political implications. Well, looking forward to tomorrow's paper. Sophia, great to see you in the studio again. Whitehall correspondent for The Sun newspaper, Sophia Slay. Lots more to come. Good news for the King's health. We'll get royal reaction next.
This journey of me following the migrants went from sort of 10 in the morning, all around the clock, to late at night, to the point where, on buses, on trains, through streets, at every key point, French military police and the French police, they were there. They were on the bus, taking down notes, taking pictures, but not doing anything to deter the migrants or stop them, just being there.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
9:20 Talk Breakfast. Now, my new favourite show is Talk Women. It's available to watch on YouTube. Common sense, okay, reasonable arguments, sensible debate. This week, the brilliant Alex Phillips, Samara Gill, Layla Cunningham are joined by Nuria Khan and Kinsey Schofield. Take a listen.
We need to have a conversation about class in this country and not about the colour of your skin.
It's the Harris playbook, right? They have Beyonce, we've got Lenny Henry.
Little Lily would rather have a Lip Smackers lip gloss from aisle 3 of Target than a freaking whatever that ball roller was that Megan was so proud of herself about.
We've become such a soft touch that our system is so easy to kind of work around and take advantage of.
Girl, you might be able to earn some money quickly, but no one's going to marry you.
Yeah.
Fantastic. There you go. Talk Women. Just head over to YouTube, search Talk Women, and it's going to come on, and it's a brilliant show to watch. It's doing incredibly well. I will say, executive produced by Dean Spencer. He only puts out good quality output. The Times newspaper. Some rare good news for the country. The King shares good news on cancer treatment. King Charles has delivered a video message to the nation with the positive news that his cancer treatment will be dramatically reduced in the new year. Describing it as a personal blessing and a milestone in his treatment, Charles said he hoped his experience may give encouragement to others. Let's get reaction from the brilliant Charlotte Griffiths, who is the editor-at-large at the Mail on Sunday. Good morning, Charlotte.
Morning.
This is good news, and we didn't see this coming, did we?
Well, actually, in Fleet Street, we had about 24 hours notice. And of course, Fleet Street being Fleet Street, there was an important King's announcement coming at 8 p.m. and everybody panicked and thought, oh God, the poor King, some terrible, terrible news is coming. But then, so we were so pleasantly surprised to see that it was good news, that he's not in remission and he's not cancer-free, but he's reducing the amount of treatment he gets, which can only be a good thing in the new year. And he's thrilled about it because it means he can do even more work than he already does.
And what's amazing is he's been so busy and so active over the last year, in spite of weekly treatment sessions. He's had international tours, he's been opening hospital wings, making speeches. He'll be even more unstoppable in the new year.
Yeah, I think he's really got a point to prove because, of course, I think it was 21 months ago that he got the diagnosis. Anyway, he's been working non-stop ever since because he does know he's waited a long time for this role as monarch. And now, there is a finite amount of time he will be the king. And there will be anyway because, even if he lives till 90. So the whole point is that he's trying to absolutely go great guns. And he kind of alluded in his speech yesterday to he sort of joked a little bit or kind of raised an eyebrow as he said, thanks to following the doctor's orders.
Yeah.
And of course, the big joke in the royal family is that, of course, he hasn't been following doctor's orders because doctors would rather he was resting a lot more. And Camilla, it drives Camilla completely crazy that he refuses to just sit down and have a rest. But what he does have to do is stop on Wednesdays because that's his cancer treatment day, and really the day after, sometimes even the day after that. So now those 3 days will be kind of brought back into his royal engagements list.
Which is wonderful news. He is a famous workaholic, isn't he?
He's a famous workaholic, yeah, he absolutely, you know, even before he was king, he was writing his spider letters, he was getting involved in Dumfries House. He's a very, very busy man. I do feel like he's got a point to prove, and I do think he's been waiting for this job a long time, and he wants to make a real impact and get photographed as many times as possible, be seen as many times as possible, go abroad as often as he can. He actually paused his cancer treatment earlier this year in order to go abroad, very much probably against doctor's orders, I think for 11 days. But he, you know, there was just nothing stopping him.
Yes, and he doesn't want his legacy to be his cancer battle or his war with his youngest son, Harry.
That's absolutely true. And he famously said to his sons, don't make my last few years a living hell, or something along those lines, didn't he? And that was actually before the real fallout kind of kicked off. But I do think in terms of his legacy and cancer, I think that the message last night was kind of taking a bit of ownership over that and saying it's almost like he's accepted now that he will be known for his cancer treatment, his cancer journey. And so he's using that for good. And of course, yesterday was all about encouraging people to get checked and early diagnosis, and really emphasizing the point that, you know, if you don't get diagnosed early, your chances of survival obviously fall.
Has this cancer battle changed him, do you think?
I think it has made him a lot softer. I do think that his reconciliation with Harry this year may not have happened so swiftly if it wasn't for his cancer journey. I think it's made him see, he's always been quite a philosophical man though, and he's always seen the bigger picture and seen the long game. But I think it has changed him. It has made him a lot softer around the edges. And you see when he does these meet and greets with people, he's a real kind of chuckly grandfather type now when he does royal engagements, which is really nice to see. And perhaps not what I was predicting, you know, say 10 years ago, I would have thought maybe he wouldn't be like that, but he's fallen into that grandfatherly role now.
It's obviously good news for the family, and it's good news for William, isn't it? Because William is in no hurry to be king.
That's absolutely true. William's in no hurry to be king. He knows he's got this job for life. I mean, this is the thing. Prince Philip kept going until his 90s. Obviously, the Queen literally had an audience with the Prime Minister the day before she tragically died. So they know that when the job starts, there is no retirement. So William wants to put it off as long as possible and spend time with his children while they're still young. I can kind of relate to that. I can see why. So yeah, he's happy to, I mean, he's pretty busy as the Prince of Wales, but I think he's happy to keep being the Prince of Wales for a bit longer.
Yes, it's the kind of polar opposite of Charles, who waited so long for the throne. And that's definitely not where William is at. You mentioned the family are young, and Catherine's only just overcome her own cancer battle too. So he'll be wanting to support his father for many years to come.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, you saw that with the Eugene Levy interview that Prince William did for Apple TV, I think it was. You could tell that he is starting to talk about changes, and he is starting to talk about when he's going to be the monarch, which is quite interesting from a press perspective, because it's something that we always really stayed away from, and we were advised strongly to stay away from this idea that when the king dies is, you know, not something you're really allowed to speak about. But William has started talking about that, so it's kind of open season on that front. And, you know, hopefully it's many, many years to come. But William is starting to talk about the changes he's going to make, what it's going to be like when he's the monarch, and what his reign as king will be like. And you can tell he does want to make a lot of changes and modernise it, strip it back and make it much less formal. And I suppose in a way, much less hard work, because he doesn't want to do endless engagements and ribbon cutting. He wants to do fewer, more impactful royal engagements.
Is there any suggestion that there is beef between Charles and William, that they don't get on, that they've got a conflicting vision of the future, that William still resents Charles's behaviour in the past in relation to Diana and his affair with Camilla?
Well, I don't know if the beef is to do with that, but I do hear whispers there's some sort of beef. There's, you know, they're not getting on perfectly, but they are now, see, they're a father and son working together. I mean, if I had to work with my father, had to. I remember him teaching me to drive. I wanted to throttle him. So I just wonder whether it's more about that than anything else. And also, I do think that Charles reconciling with Harry wasn't what William really wanted. And then there's, of course, the Andrew debacle. So Charles wants Andrew to move to Sandringham, and he has to check every decision like that. He has to check with William. He has to run it past William, because William will one day inherit all these properties. And so if you're going to have your uncle living on your Norfolk estate, you know, you kind of have to thrash that out. So they've had a lot of, I think, terse business discussions about how to run the firm. But I think at Christmas, you know, on Christmas Day, I think they'll hopefully slip back into family mode, and they are capable of getting on when they're in a room. But, you know, they're not always in agreement about how to run the firm.
No, and it seems that Charles is perceived as rather softer and has been a bit too much of a pushover with Andrew and maybe with Harry. And it looks like when William becomes king, he'll be firmer in regard to errant members of the flock and their behaviour, possibly even stripping Harry of his titles when he becomes king. What about Harry? How do you think the news of Charles's cancer journey and the less treatment required, how's that going to go down in Montecito, California, do you think, Charlotte?
Oh, I think Harry will be thrilled. I think he's keen to come over in the new year to see his father again. We know that when he first got the cancer diagnosis, Harry flew straight away on a plane. Actually, wasn't really invited, and it didn't last very long, the meeting. But, you know, he is very much aware, of course, that his father's unwell. And he said, I don't know how long my father has left to live, on a BBC programme earlier this year, which actually went down incredibly badly in royal circles. But, you know, it shows that he is keenly aware that, you know, he has to make amends now. You know, there might not be 20 years to do this, you know, the time is now. So I think he'll be happy his dad's getting better. I think he'll be itching to come and see him again. And I imagine early in the new year we'll see that reunion again.
And Meghan Markle, through her people, through her representatives, her public relations team, have waged a war of words on your paper, The Mail on Sunday, Charlotte, characterising Caroline Graham, the US editor of your excellent paper, as Thomas Markle's puppeteer. Of course, The Mail on Sunday got the exclusive on Thomas Markle's health. He's lost a leg to amputation. He's fighting for his life in the intensive care unit of a Philippines hospital. But yeah, your paper very much making headlines in relation to the Sussexes.
I think that's so unfair to call Caroline a puppeteer, you know, because who has Thomas Markle got by his bedside at the moment? His son, Thomas Markle Jr., who, I don't know if you've seen the YouTube videos, but he's clearly all over the place. He's not a sensible and calm influence. Did Meghan fly over to the Philippines and sit by her father's bedside? No. So what, does she want him to be completely alone? You know, I think actually Caroline and Tom have a genuine friendship, and yeah, I just think it's really unfair of Meghan. You know, she hasn't spoken to her father in years, and you know, she should have been more, I don't know, so I suppose self-aware really about, you know, this man is incredibly lonely, and better that somebody calm like Caroline Graham is by his bedside than nobody.
But also, I think that Thomas Markle Sr. feels very powerless. He's grateful that a newspaper will report his feelings at the moment, and it's the Mail on Sunday that got that exclusive, a photograph of him in his hospital bed saying, my dying wish is to see my daughter again. This guy just wants to get that message across that he's lonely, he's never met his grandchildren. But the Sussexes don't like that, and Meghan Markle doesn't like that. Of course, the couple, the pair, they've got previous with the Mail and the Mail on Sunday, don't they? With, of course, Harry's aborted efforts to sue the Mail on Sunday, which was a legal action that he then later withdrew. So talking about beef earlier, there's definitely beef between the Mail group of newspapers and the Sussexes.
Sure, but, you know, actually, ever since Meghan first cut her father off, he's been speaking to lots of different newspapers and actually mainly to TV stations. You know, I remember at the very beginning when she's now admitted that she deleted his phone number, which is why she struggled to get hold of him when he was in the Philippines. And he spoke out on ITV, all sorts of different news channels, saying, I have no idea how to get hold of my daughter. I'm being ghosted by her, and I'm going to use media to contact her. And of course it didn't work, but, you know, also her half-brother Thomas Markle Jr. is always posting YouTube videos. You know, actually Thomas Markle Sr. is trying every which way to get hold of her. You know, YouTube, newspapers, TV channels, and it's just always fallen on deaf ears.
Charlotte, lovely to have you on the show, and I wish you a Merry Christmas if we don't meet and catch up in the new year. Charlotte Griffiths is the editor-at-large at the Mail on Sunday, and if you've fallen out with the Sussexes as a newspaper, that tells me you're doing something right. Lots more to come. Should illegal immigrants be allowed to work? This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
9:35 Talk Breakfast. I'm so sorry, folks, but I do think that some on the left have completely lost the plot. We had Jonathan Liss in earlier, who is a Labour, or at least a left-leaning political commentator. And I just said that, you know, the boats crisis is terrible for the working class, the poor people of this country. Why have the left abandoned ordinary working class people? We had a ding-dong about it. Let's get through a couple of voice notes on this. This is Lynn.
Good morning, Mark. I think you ought to get Jonathan Liss in more often. He's done more to expose the stupidity of the left than any Conservative or Reform speaker could do. Great show. Thank you very much. This is Lynn from Staffordshire.
I will tell you, Dave, the engineer, has told me that we have literally had hundreds of voice notes about this. I'll try and get through a few more. Yes, we've got Mike. Take a listen to this.
The arrogance of your guest, Jonathan, just shows the true colours that I always suspected. And this is typical of left and Labourism when they get put on and in a situation of common sense talking. He talks about helping poor people, and you rightly said there are poor people in this country. We're being taxed to death and we're bringing more poor people in. It just shows utter contemptuous attitude towards people who have common sense. And he and Labour and the left, hard left, need to understand that the people aren't that stupid. And we've had enough. It's really that simple. And that's just me being kind. Great show.
Mike, thank you for that. And can I thank you for literally hundreds of voice notes. I've got a full message board as well. We could do 2 hours on that. I think I might make it. I don't normally show my workings, but I think it might be tomorrow's Dolan's Dispatch, is to deal with that encounter and to represent what you've had to say on that subject. Folks, shall we have something very, very positive, which is that an injured army veteran, a total hero of this country, is walking 420 miles to support the Royal British Legion. OK, Jason Paul was, I hate to tell you, injured in Afghanistan, an explosion, and he faced real issues with addiction, PTSD on returning to Civvy Street. But with the support of the charity, the armed forces community and loved ones, he's making a great recovery, and now he's on the march. Jason, good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm very well indeed. Now listen, Jason, where are you at on the walk?
I'm about 10 miles outside of Birmingham. I'm heading up towards Stratford-on-Avon today. I've got 50 kilometres today.
pretty impressive. How are the conditions this morning?
Pretty nice. It's a bit cold, but that's perfect for walking. Makes you walk faster to warm yourself up. So, yeah, all good at the moment.
And have you had any issues, any blisters, any joint pain, anything like that going on?
I think blisters, nature of the beast, isn't it? You just deal with it, you crack on, and you just keep marching forward.
Well, you look absolutely excellent. You look as fresh as a daisy, Jason. Can I ask you what happened to you in Afghanistan? Are you able to do you mind telling me that?
Yeah, that's fine, no problem. So I was in the 1st Battalion, the Mercian Regiment, over in Afghanistan, and I was on a routine foot patrol, and I was the point man, and unfortunately I was hit with an IED. Luckily, it only partially detonated. Lost hearing in my left ear, and fortunately that was the only injuries that I sustained physically. Yeah, so I came back from Afghanistan. I ended up getting medically discharged because of my hearing.
Yeah.
And then I come out, I was in and out of jobs, and then I'd say a couple of years after I'd left, I started to spiral, but not too bad. And then about 5 years after that, I moved to London, and that was really the downfall of me. I turned to drink, drugs. You know, I was getting in around crowds. I was making bad choices, and I was heavily addicted on cocaine and almost became homeless. And at that point, the Royal British Legion stepped in, and they were and still are absolutely immense in my life. Honestly, the main thing for me doing this walk, it's nothing about me. It's to highlight the amazing work that they do day in, day out. They're such a selfless charity. You know, they help me more than I could ever express. I couldn't possibly ever put into words, you know, what they've done for me and what they do for the veterans community as well. So, I came up with this idea of this challenge, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to do that. Hopefully, raise some vital funds for them. And yeah, it left me where I am now, and I'm day 3. Got 9 days left after today. And yeah, I'm really proud of where I am at the moment because, as I say, I was in a real bad place. But what helped to drag me out of it was I thought if I can help other veterans like myself, then absolutely the little pains that I'm going to suffer over the next 12 days will be nothing in comparison, to what they're suffering day in, day out.
It's incredible. And obviously you had the support of the Royal British Legion, who you are walking for in the next few days. How did you turn your life around? How did you get off the booze and drugs, Jason? For anyone that's listening at the moment that's struggling with those issues, what did you do that changed things for you?
I basically just changed my whole outlook on life. I was turning family against me. My family are amazing. They've always supported me through everything, but I was pushing them away. And I was upsetting them, and they're all amazing people. And I thought, I can't continue my life in this vein. Something has to give. So, I decided, because fitness for me is a big thing. When I get into fitness, the drink and the drugs are never an issue for me. So
yeah,
I come up with this challenge, and I've not looked back. And honestly, it's changed my whole outlook on life completely. So, yeah, I've got a lot to, thank my family, my friends, and also the British Legion, because without them, I definitely wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now.
No,
sure.
and I'm going to give details of how people can donate for your walk. And the Royal British Legion, when we buy our poppies every year, that money is going to such a good cause. Can I ask you physically how you're doing? How's your hearing at the moment, Jason?
Yeah, it's good. In the left ear, not so much, but yeah, in general, I'm good. You learn to deal with these things, and yeah, I just cracking on with life, and I'm super happy at the moment. So
yeah,
I couldn't ask for any more.
Well, I'm so happy. And what's going to be the hardest aspect of the walk now? I know you're very positive in your hopes for the next few days. Have you got any worries? Have you seen the weather forecast?
To be honest with you, I don't really concentrate on the weather. We've all lived in this country long enough to know that the weather can turn at the drop of a hat. So, yeah, I just take each day. If it rains, I'll get wet. My skin's waterproof. It's not an issue. Just crack on and, just get it done. Because at the end of the day, my moments where I might be cold or I might be sore, it's not going to last forever. But the funds that I could raise could change someone's life forever. So, you know, those minor pains and stresses, you know, are nothing to me, really.
Jason, I want you to raise a fortune. I've got the most incredibly generous audience. So how can people donate and support your walk for the British Legion?
If you go onto Google and type in Jason's Road to Redemption, that'll take you directly to my funding page. And honestly, no matter what the amount is, just please donate. Let's get this up as much as we can. I'm just over £5,800 now, but I want to keep pushing this, and I want to raise as much as I can for such an amazing charity.
There you go. Jason's Road to Redemption. It will take you straight to the Royal British Legion's fundraising page. Jason, you were a hero in the military. I salute you and thank you for your service to this country. You're a hero again. Have a good one, big man, and good luck with the next few days.
Thanks a lot. Cheers, Mark. All the best. Thanks for having me.
Top man. I tell you what, our privilege to have you. Jason Paul there. Let me reiterate that. Jason's Road to Redemption. A better cause you could not hope for. I'll be jumping on that myself very shortly. Now, let me tell you that if you need any support whatsoever, then if you're going through mental health issues, you're depressed, you're concerned about your life, you're in a bad place, then all you do is head to www.talk.tv/helplines. Talk.tv/helplines. Samaritans, your GP. There is always help out there, so please reach out. Don't suffer in silence, because you are loved and you are precious, each and every one of you. It's 9:45. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm going to give you more feedback after the break. My ding-dong with the left-leaning political commentator Jonathan Liss. I've got voice notes to get through. And what is the greatest Christmas movie of all time? We'll get the answer from Virgin Radio's Steve Denyer. This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
9:48, this is Talk Breakfast, and we had such an interesting conversation this morning, haven't we? We've been discussing Reform UK, whether illegal immigrants should be allowed to work. The simple question on reform was, are they the answer? This is a voice note from Carl.
Hi Mark, Carl in Berry. It's quite simple for me. I'm going to be voting Reform. The reason I'm voting Reform is all the others have failed, all the others have lied, all the others have been deceitful towards the electorate. They've not come back with the promises they said they would do, so I'm going to give Reform a chance. If they don't do everything that they say they're going to do, or they can't achieve everything, fair enough. But I honestly believe they have the best interests of the British public at heart, and I think that's the main thing. Cheers, pal.
Thank you, Carl. Really appreciate your voice note and the political will to change things. That's the big one, isn't it? This is Dawn. Should illegal immigrants be allowed to work?
Good morning, Dawn from Swansea. I've just tuned into your station. I'll be listening for the next few hours. I just heard the tail end of should immigrants be allowed to work? So in my opinion, absolutely not, because it's a slippery slope. They start working, the next thing would be they'll be given the vote, and then we're sunk. Have a good day. Bye.
Dawn, I completely agree with you. You are a wise lady. And last word goes to Michael on the voice note. Take it away, Michael.
Hi there, Phil, Dave and Mark Dolan. What worries me is these loony lefties that you have on. Don't you have to pay them? This is Michael from Norwich. Great show. And Mark Dolan, you're a brilliant presenter.
Oh, my goodness, Michael, I'm blushing now. Thank you so much. Listen, the show's nothing without you. Thank you for your kind words. And yeah, I think we do pay everyone. We might have to look at that one. We might have to rethink. Thanks for your brilliant feedback. It is 9:50. This is Talk Breakfast. Shall we end on a high now? The greatest Christmas films of all time in the company of Virgin Radio's Steve Denyer. And Steve, before we get to Christmas movies, some very exciting things happening at Virgin, okay?
Yes,
it is
indeed.
the place to be for people like me who are addicted to music radio. Big plans, and a big plan for your show.
Yeah, every morning at 5 o'clock we start things. I do the baby breakfast show, which is warming everything, getting everything ready, like everything you need to know about the day. And then, of course, Chris Evans is here at 6:30. We've grown up with Chris Evans. He's on Virgin Radio, the most spectacular guest every morning. We live stream the guest on the Virgin Radio UK app as well, so you can see everything. It kind of really reminds, there's such a buzz here at the moment. It reminds me of, you know, the TFI days when anything can happen. We have the greatest guests, the biggest laughs, and it starts Monday to Friday, 5 a.m, and I do the baby breakfast show.
Well, what it means is the breakfast show starts at 5.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. No messing
Virgin
around.
breakfast, 5 a.m. That is the story.
Yeah.
And it's music and chat and information.
Everything you need to know about your day, and you know, just if your head's not quite there, we'll get it there. So give us a listen from Monday. We start at 100 miles an hour, 5 o'clock. Everything you need to know.
You and Evans, right, and the dream team. You guys are your colleagues, you're good friends as well.
Yeah.
Right. For those that don't know, what's he like?
He is the most incredible broadcaster.
Now, are you not paid to say this?
No, because the thing is, I grew up listening to him, and it's the most amazing thing. You know, I had this dream when I was a kid. It's like, imagine being part of his team, or you know, part of what he does. And all these years later, somehow here we are. I'm on Virgin Radio, you know, with him, broadcasting with him, but there is nobody else like Chris Evans.
And I've had the privilege of meeting him a couple of times on this floor, and what you see is what you get. He's a good guy.
Absolutely, 100% devoted, so supportive, and just so much fun and so original and so much creativity. I kind of look at him and go, wow, it's almost otherworldly.
Yeah, no, he's an amazing guy, and it's a privilege to be on the same floor as him, and one day I'll get in the lift with him and then he won't be able to escape. Baby Breakfast, Virgin Radio, starts 5 a.m. on Monday.
Lovely.
So excited about the Christmas movies, the greatest film of all time of Christmas. Why are Christmas movies so important? Why do we love them so much?
Well, you know, seemingly I've done a bit of history work. They kind of, the whole theme of like Christmas content started with Charles Dickens. It did. And you can go on some great tours in London. You can go on the Scrooge tour in London and find out where all the places were based. It was really kind of after the war that Christmas movies, as we know now, took form. And some people say it's because we wanted to feel good after the war years. You know, if you look at the 40s, the late 40s, the very, very first Christmas movie, the one that's kind of known as it set the ball rolling, was The Holiday Inn. Fred Astaire Bing Crosby. Should we have a little look? I've got a little trailer. Let's have a look. This is the first Christmas movie of all of them. Take a look.
Holiday Inn. Never has there been such a show as this. From Easter to Christmas, from the 4th of July to Thanksgiving, there's a song for every holiday and a holiday for every song.
I'm dreaming of a
It was the very, very first movie. That was the very, very first time we ever heard the song White Christmas, because it was used in that film. And, you know, a lot of people said that was the very, very first one.
Incredible
of its
movie.
kind.
And Astaire and Crosby, I mean, talk about a dream team.
Amazing. 1942.
You know, Holiday Inn. Holiday Inn. Can I say I prefer the sequel, Holiday Inn Express? I don't know if you've seen that. Comes with a free minibar.
I've been there. Can I ask you, let me put you, I think I know what you're going to say. What's your favourite one of all time?
Well, I love most of them. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
I've got a clip.
Oh, stop it.
Shall we have a look? Have a look at this. It's very silly. I mean, there's so many bits you could play from this film because it's all good, isn't it? It reminds me of Planes, Trains and Automobiles. Every time you look at the screen, there's another great joke or another scene. Those Christmas lights were real. There were 25,000 of them. They had to have a separate generator just to do that scene. What is it? Why do you like that? Because it's a comedy one,
It's
isn't
a comedian called Chevy Chase, who's a great comedy actor of the 80s, and it's about a father that's trying to give his family the perfect Christmas, and it's a little bit like Basil Fawlty, where he's trying so hard for everything to be perfect, it's going to go the other way.
Yeah.
And one of the big things is that he's going to put a swimming pool in the house with his bonus from work, and then on Christmas Eve he finds out that there's no bonus.
Yes.
So he goes and kidnaps his boss and everything. It's a great story. So yeah, great Christmas fun. What next?
We've had so many people. I'm glad so many people have asked for this one because it's my favourite Christmas movie of all time. This is Albert Finney as Scrooge. This is the 1970 Scrooge the musical. Albert Finney was only 35 when he made this movie. Officially the youngest Scrooge we've ever seen. Would you like to see a bit?
Love to.
Loads of people asking for this.
That's Father Christmas! A plague and Father Christmas! Humbug. I hate people. Not a humbug. There is no such thing as rich enough.
Classic.
Really good. You know, he sang the songs, he danced with prosthetic legs and all that kind of stuff. That's my go-to. I watch this movie every single year on Christmas Eve because we often have these things where we watch the same ones that we love.
It's a ritual.
Christmas Eve is a ritual. About 6 o'clock in the evening, I watch it and it really gets you in the mood.
I know it's not a Christmas movie, but for us, that's Mary Poppins. That goes on every time.
Yeah.
Next up, Home Alone 2.
Yeah, Susie in Brighton says it's got to be Home Alone 2. Can you play the Donald Trump scene? So here we go. I've got a little clip. Have a little look at this.
Excuse me, where's the lobby?
Down the hall and to the left.
Thanks.
Donald Trump, that Donald Trump scene was a condition. You can film in Trump Tower as long as I'm in the movie.
He's a clever man. Well, Home Alone is a very funny movie, and Macaulay Culkin, great. What about another one which is a bit of a tearjerker?
Well, Gary and Lester said Love Actually.
Yeah.
So many people have asked for this movie. This movie, I remember seeing this movie when it came out. It didn't have a massive premiere or anything. Lots of the actors were underpaid. It was a bit of a risk making it, but we all love it, and I've got a little clip for you now. You know, this movie is so well known that lots of people will be hearing that and picturing the cards. That was the famous card scene. What I love about that film is it starts off with lots of people at Heathrow Airport greeting their relatives, and they're real people. They had no idea that they were being filmed at the arrivals lounge at Heathrow Airport. But it's a beautiful movie. The way it starts, it's like 20 films sewn into one, but it's very, very clever.
It's a tearjerker. It's funny.
It's got everything. Yeah. It's got everything. Amy in South Manchester, we'll finish on this one. The Holiday, with Kate Winslet and Cameron Diaz swapping each other's lives. Kate Winslet goes to Los Angeles, Cameron Diaz comes over and stays with Jude
Any
Law.
good?
It's really great. You know, lots of people have searched for that cottage on Airbnb. It's made up. It was just a movie set, but it's a really, really good film, and it's a bit of a cult movie that, again, people watch every single year without fail. So they're absolutely some of the best. Thank you so much if you messaged in this morning. Yeah, great selection. Happy Christmas.
Steve Denyer